Because if you got a taser and you're tasering him, why in the hell you're still punching him?
Well,
that doesn't make sense to me.
Well, and that's the thing. If they were using pain compliance to try to affect the arrest, and that's reasonably necessary, especially if he is punching people, it sounds like from the description that this guy had assaulted a security guard. They could all be lies, right? But if it's accurate, and there did seem to be a rather unruly crowd, if this guy, and we're talking about El Paso, overwhelmingly Latino city, overwhelmingly.
What they got to do with it?
Well, it's people of color. It's all people of color.
But what does the race? What does the race have to do with it?
I mean, you're always making it the whitey.
No,
cop.
you just did.
No,
Latino, what that mean?
It's a very diverse.
So if it was in Santa Barbara, California, Venice Beach, it would make it different.
It's a very diverse police department, right? Officers are sent to that. Officers clearly were fighting with the guy. And if they're fighting with the guy and he's continuing to fight, they get to use the force necessary. And you went on this long diatribe condemning men with testosterone and all. Thank God for men with good. I watched a video this morning.
Not some of these young cops just full of it.
I watched a video this morning of two young female officers, patrol officers, trying to arrest a small guy, probably 150 pounds, and who was causing a disturbance in a restaurant, much like this incident. And one of the restaurant employees, a guy, had to come help them because he was fighting and they just couldn't handle it. We need to stop decrying masculinity as toxic. And you know, remember that officers are the ones that are supposed to step forward into danger and intercede on the behalf of the law body.
Do you think that female cops should be on the front line?
Yes, I think the female cops add something to it.
I don't.
But I do think they have a different perspective. But I think they should be required.
They should have a male officer.
I would disagree. I think female cops need to be required to complete the same physical fitness and the same rigor that men do. But also, we see nowadays.
But women are physically not naturally strong as men.
Hold on. We see, but I have worked with some female officers that can throw hands and they use the devices. But we also see a lot of male cops that aren't those masculine, filled with testosterone.
Oh, I agree with them too. I see that all the time.
300, 400 tubby pounds. Like, I got kind of fat when I became a lawyer, but I was in really good shape. I used to go home and run every day when I was a cop because I knew I worked in a real bad part of town. We had a lot of business. I worked nights. It was time to work. And there were times I didn't like punching people. But there were times when I had to punch people because they were violent and refusing to be arrested.
But here's the difference.
And I don't.
Did you take pleasure in it?
Oh, no, not at all.
And you know that some of these cops take pleasure in that.
And I don't think so. I don't think it's
you don't think
problem.
You don't think you've ever dealt with cops in your career that took pleasure in physically putting hands on a suspect?
I think absolutely there were cops that were, you get a lot of adrenaline after. But the question is, are they actively creating situations? Or are they just beating people for no reason?
I think they're actively escalating situations and not de-escalating some to justify physical use of force.
I think there's far less of that with the advent of body cameras. And yes, everyone knows bad cops.
But now they're turning the cameras on and off.
But there are far more good cops. And you began this.
Some of these guys are turning cameras on and off now, body cameras.
Thank God for the police.
Thank God for good police.
Transparency. That's a new one from him.
Thank God for good police.
He just condemned all of them.
I love good police.
At the beginning of this episode.
But some of them cowboys need to be lassoed in.
All they're going to do is argue and squabble. When they get through arguing, squabbling, and debating, they ain't going to feel nothing. They're not going to produce nothing. They're not going to manufacture nothing. They're not going to create nothing. So why you talk to black people? All y'all debate war. All y'all debate war. Get some money. Damn about my people. The white about people. I don't give a damn about my people. You right there, bro. You right here. Charles. They wasted my time bringing me up. They wasted my damn, man. With me about my people. Y'all don't even care about y'all people. Go talk to your grandmama then. They wasting my time. Racism. I don't believe in racism.
In this round, here's Quanell X.
Charles, that's a video that's going viral on social media by a very prominent social media influencer, Charleston White. a brother out of Dallas, Texas, and who has become very popular because of his attacks against certain aspects and elements and individuals in the hip hop community that he feels is detrimental toward Black progress and Black success. And also, the brother has been very condescending and condemned many in the Black community in every aspect of Black leadership. Well, this was a video. Obviously, he's speaking at allegedly a HBCU. Some Black students invited him there, and things did not go the way the students wanted it to go. And obviously, he was disappointed for whatever the reason may be. But he said that Black people would never do anything. Black people will never produce nothing together. We'll never come together, and we don't love each other. And then he began to go on and says he's walking to the car, F my people. I don't care about my people. I would say to those young brothers and sisters, you know, God will bless you to see certain things in life as a young student. And it is your duty as a young student not to always condemn that which is in front of you, but to thoroughly try and understand it, examine it, and understand the motivation behind it. And as a young student, you learn many ways from men like Charleston White. You learn what not to do. You can learn also what to do. And if you fail to do what you should do, what you can become. Brother Charleston White started out as an activist. And I believe his heart was absolutely in the right place in the beginning of his work and his soldiering among our people. But he even talked about he lost the love and lost the passion to fight for us because of how hard it was to fight for us, because we made things more difficult for so many activists who wanted to help us. But I hate Brother Charleston White spoke like that to those students. I hate he said the things that he said that came out of his mouth, whether he feels they're true or not, because those are the young minds that he has a duty by God's grace to influence, to enlighten, and to properly inform, not ill-inform. It hurt me to see that. And when he used the language, F my own people, you know, I hate brother said those words, but I would say to Charleston White, God has allowed you to ascend the platform of popularity. But you must ask yourself, brother, is it Satan that is giving you the platform?
So Charleston White, I don't think I would say criticize instead of attack. And clearly he has ascended in popularity by taking controversial opinions. But this video that it was put up, it was entitled Charleston White Gets Chased Off an HBCU Campus. And it was at Tougaloo College in Jackson, Mississippi. And the quotes I saw, per usual, you engage in a lot of hyperbole, were a little bit different. His quote is saying, not F my own people. He said, F racism. I don't believe in racism. And the rejoinder was, why would you come to an HBCU? And the point that he seemed to make is that what you have is this affirmation echo chamber in, a lot of spaces, a lot of liberal spaces, a lot of conservative spaces, and a lot of spaces arguing for this neo-segregation of no whites, this affinity group necessary where just the presence, we heard it from like 2017 on, we heard how just a white presence creates danger and all of this absolute neo-racist nonsense, right? That is advocating for a new era of discrimination and segregation for historical grievances. And Charleston White repeatedly makes the point, and he does it in a controversial, abrasive, cursing manner, to, in my opinion, get more attention, because this whole machine, like many activists and many influencers, is built on clicks and views and attention, right? And he gets a lot of it, and he gets it by saying, and you dismiss him, oh, it was too difficult. I've heard him say very different things, that he started as an activist and realized that a lot of people in his community were pointing the finger of blame everywhere except towards themselves as individuals, right? And it's much easier to say, oh, this is all Whitey's fault, than to say, well, where did I mess up? Where did I go wrong? Where could I do better to improve my lot in life? You continually feed that narrative, right? That a lot of activists push this myth that Black men and women don't have agency and empowerment, which is absolutely nonsense, because plenty of them do, right? But you also, and you have the same thing in the white community, you have tons of people that want to find, especially the liberal white community, that want to find other people to blame for their failure to succeed, like socialists, right? Socialists, and I think we should have socialized medicine. I think every American citizen should be entitled to at least a baseline of health care. I don't think we should have children starving in America. So I think you've got to separate socialist programs, safety net programs, from the concept of socialism generally, which is really people like Bernie Sanders, who's never had a job. He had a job at a commune once. He lived on a commune and got fired, right? He's never had a real job except the government. Here locally, Lena Hidalgo has never had a real job. She grew up very affluent in Buenos Aires, claims that she's a Colombian immigrant. She did live there till she was like 6 or 7, and then moved out to one of the wealthiest suburbs and one of the nicest neighborhoods in the Houston area, but then claimed immigrant status to go to Stanford and ascend to, and we have just the mythology of socialism is good, but it's really, you see Zohran Mamdani in New York, you have these socialists that really just want to take from other hardworking people, right? You promote the myth of this, white people are just all born with a silver spoon in their butt. Every penny I've ever made has come from me working. I worked full-time through high school. Well, not through high school, but I had multiple full-time jobs, but not all the time in high school. And full-time all the way through undergrad and my law degree. And, to pay for stuff because I didn't have money. Right. And you go to somebody, Charleston goes and speaks to people. And when he hears people saying stuff he disagrees with, which sounds like if you listen to him talk was blame Whitey, it's all Whitey's fault. He got physically chased off the campus and had to defend himself. And that is what I find most absurd. And we're seeing that at campuses. No, you can't. If you have people to speak, listen to people speak.
No,
why should you respond to speech with violence?
But he responded with such profane language.
Oh, their delicate virgin ears.
When you start speaking to people with profanity and insulting language at a college campus, you're going to
get beat up by crowds.
They didn't beat him up. You're going to expect young people to be angry and upset.
What are they, delicate baby flowers?
Looks like he was leaving on his own. But I want to say this to black people. Whether we like Charleston White or not, whether we agree with Charleston White or not, if we can have the strength to not look at the vessel, not pay attention to the messenger, but thoroughly examine the message. Because Charleston White, the messenger, is not what's most important. The message that comes out of his mouth, if it has even a degree or a fraction of truth in it, let us cast to the side whatever we can't accept with the messenger. But let us not use that as an excuse to reject the truth of any message that is in the best interest of black people. We as a people have brought the condition that we're in to a great degree on our refusal to unite, come together, turn back to God, and demand and work night and day to bring men back into the home and turn our communities back into safe, respectful, decent places to live. Yes, we are united, but we're united in more foolishness. We're united in more ignorance, and we're united in more celebration of exploitation and self-destructive lifestyles and behavior than we're ever united around the very principles of the Creator who created all of us. We have to come together as a people. We cannot look to the white man to do for black people what God demands that we get up and do for ourselves. It is not the white man's responsibility to clean up crime in the black community. We have the power, the intelligence, the wherewithal, and the manpower to do it ourselves. What we lack is the passion to come together and do it. And if we ever would do that, we would need the police to do what the police is doing in the black community, because police excessive use of force, misconduct, that stuff only flourishes in communities that are not in love with themselves. Charleston White, many are angry with brother. He says a lot of insulting things, but that brother is not a dumb man. That brother is not an ignorant man. He's an intelligent brother. But the method of his delivery is what's so painful to so many of his own people, to where they reject the brother And I would say to Charleston White, God is real, black man. And no matter how high you go in this world, you can never escape the hand of God. And when he's ready to deal with you and all of us, there's room for improvement in brother, as it is in all of us
that
too.
was a nice, incredibly long speech. But at the beginning of this,
But it's painful as a
you were
black man
justifying
to see how we
these
handle
kids
each other.
violently chasing him off campus because you said he used words that hurt their feelings or whatever.
Profane words, insulting language.
So they're fragile little flowers but they can fight, but they're fragile. It's disgusting.
A whole lot of women to fight you, talk to them crazy.
It is disgusting to use violence.
Your wife will go upside your head and you say the wrong thing out your mouth.
It is absolutely disgusting that they are threatening with violence. More people should listen to Charleston White's words and not be so delicate that they can't handle a little free speech.
That's it for the Face-Off on Fox Soul. We'll catch you next time. It's time for today's Face-Off on Fox Soul. Challengers Quanell X and Big Angry Adams ready to go blow by blow on those hot topics. Face-Off on Fox Soul starts right now.
Precinct 1 deputy who was fired after being caught on camera pointing her gun at a man during a family dispute. Tonight, that man is sharing his story with Fox 26's Abigail Dye, including new audio recorded moments before the viral video started rolling.
You've probably seen this video. Now, former Precinct 1 deputy Brittany Brown is seen in uniform, off duty, pointing her weapon at Michael Evans.
Because she literally pulled me over in a regular car with a firearm. She just jumped out the car at that point, ran around to my driver door and planted the gun in my face. She using her service pistol in her uniform to bully and oppress me.
Before this, Evans says he got in an argument with his then fiance, who is Brown's sister. He says he took his fiance's phone and drove off. And you said you did take the phone.
I just took the phone, which I bought. So I was gonna bring it back to her. I wasn't gonna keep her phone. I didn't need it. I just needed that problem to come to a halt and let's talk.
Not long after this happened, Evans says before he hit record, he called his sister, who recently found out that the call captured more audio of the incident.
She didn't answer, so I ended up on answer machine.
Anything I do is justify. I want the phone.
I'm on duty. Everything I do is just, but I offered her the phone thousands of times.
Precinct 1 launched an internal investigation that took about a month. And this week, that investigation concluded. The result, Brown being fired.
In this round, here's Quanell X.
Charles, that's a case where many across the country witnessed this viral video of this police officer from Precinct 1 Harris County Constable's Office in Houston, Texas, commit a crime on video. She decided that she would go and retrieve her sister's phone from her sister's fiance because they had a dispute while on duty, in uniform, in a patrol car, pull this man over, Charles, put a gun in his face, threaten his life over and over again. You see the video. Make all type of racial threats and use racial slurs toward him. Threaten to kill him, then say, I'm in uniform. Anything I do is justified. Ain't nothing gonna happen to me. I got one question for you. I'm not going to get no long diatribe and then say I'm going to pass it to you. I'm passing to you right now. Why in the hell is she not in jail?
Well, I imagine she's not in jail because she was law enforcement. I was under the impression, I could be wrong, that she was off duty at the time of the incident, although still in her uniform. Precinct 1 is, and this is Harris County specific, but the constables here in which we have several different types of law enforcement in the Houston area. We have the Sheriff's Department, which is a county entity. We have the constables, which are county entities, but they're not county-wide. They're precinct-based. We have, I believe, 8 precincts, right? Precinct 1 is downtown, and it also covers my home here, just outside of downtown. And they are not civil service like the police department and the sheriff's office. Of course, the police department, you have Houston Police Department. Every small city has their own. Whereas in a place like New York, you'll have a metro-wide police department. But So they conducted an internal affairs investigation and then fired her. If it was a civil service agency, it would have taken a year to fire her. They would have been suspended with, or she would have been suspended with pay probably, and it would have gone through this lengthy process. So from a lawyer that has dealt with these types of matters before, from that vantage, I will say firing her within a month was a very, very quick result. And I assume that she was taken off the streets until
No,
they
she was put
actually
on desk
terminated.
duty, Charles. She was put
A
on
desk
desk
duty.
duty.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
taken off the streets. That's exactly.
No,
I mean, you're
no, but that's
literally
not my
interrupting me
question.
to say that exactly what I said was right. Okay.
Why in the hell she ain't in jail?
Okay. Well, that's different. That the constable doesn't control that, right? That's going to be the district attorney's office and wherever the incident actually occurred. Now, in Texas, if you point a gun at someone and threaten them, well, that's aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, right? Now, I don't get you saying she made racial comments. They're both black, right? Like, you don't think it's
Oh, she made them,
racism or
Charles.
race-based
She made
when
'em.
when a black guy stabs a
You
white
are a
girl,
former
the only white
judge.
girl is trained to death. Oh, that's
You're
not
a
race.
former
But
criminal defense
here,
attorney.
you bring up race when they're both black.
But
So
Charles,
I don't get
you
that,
are a
right?
former criminal defense attorney and a judge.
Okay.
You and I
Okay.
both know this woman, yes, was off duty, but still in a uniform, still
Who said she
in the
was on
party
duty?
that's assigned to her, pulled him over, was not called to the scene, was not 911 to the scene,
It sounds like a crime. I'm not
tracked him
disagreeing.
down, got out the car,
But it wasn't
forced by
racial.
force, detained
They're
him
both
by
black.
force,
Why are you trying to
and then
mislead
stuck
our
a
audience?
gun in his face and threatened to kill him.
That's
You
horrible.
know, like I know, had that been any other regular citizen who had pulled somebody over and stopped them illegally and detained them and stuck a gun in their face and threatened to kill them and bragged about getting away with it, they ass would be under the jail. Why is there a double standard when cops commit these same crimes and it's on video? It takes so long to charge them. I guarantee you no other citizen that was on video like that would take 30 days to be charged. And she still has not been charged.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's problematic that she wasn't charged. I think they do take their time to build a stronger case when it is a police officer because they don't want the attention and the egg on their face. I will say there are some nuances in Texas law, right, that I don't think apply here. If that was her cell phone that he stole, because he clearly stole his fiance's cell phone. Now you can say, oh, well, I was going to offer to give it back. He clearly, probably wanting to go through it, probably some jealousy or something. He clearly stole her cell phone and took off, and she called her sister and said, he stole my cell phone. Right. And the sister being the sister wanted to go retrieve it. Well, in Texas, if someone has stolen your property and the only reasonable way that you think you can resecure the property is the use of deadly force, which pointing a gun at someone is in fact the use of deadly force, right? Then it's actually allowed in a number of scenarios. But
it wasn't her property.
It extends to a third party seeking
What's
to
her
recover
property?
it, right? So I don't think she really has much argument that she didn't commit a crime. I think she very much committed a crime. I'm predicting right now that I think our district attorney's office will most certainly seek an indictment and charge her. I think you're absolutely right. I know the show's not supposed to do this. I think you're absolutely right. The only reason she wasn't charged now is because she's a cop and they cross their T's and dot their I's when they go after cops. But we do live in Houston, Texas, and do have a DA's office that loves to go after cops. So it's kind of falling on deaf ears for me when you're saying, oh, yeah, they're taking their time. But I'll tell you right now, that video was egregious. It wasn't racial. They were both black. I can't believe you said that. But I think she's going to get charged, and I think she'll get fully prosecuted. And I think her plea bargain options will be far less than those if it was just a citizen doing it to another citizen.
I think a lot of citizens would disagree with you and question just how sincere the district attorney's office is in prosecuting corrupt and bad cops. We all know common sense.
They're very aggressive about it.
But wait a minute. Ray Charles.
It's a Soros-supported
Ray Charles can see what's going on here, and Stevie Wonder could write the script. Charles, you and I both know if this was a video of you or I on a video captured by a citizen doing the same exact thing, we'd have been in jail the next day. You and I,
no video for me because I'd have made sure if I was criming, there were no videos involved.
And you and I both know, Charles, that we wouldn't put him on damn desk duty, my friend. This case should be
Fox
prosecuted
would fire us that day, right, Matt?
in a
Can we get
heartbeat.
can we get
And-
an affirmation from the eye in the sky?
And
Matt,
we'd
will we
be
get
locked
fired
up.
that day?
And we'd be locked up by local law enforcement. This woman was out of control, completely out of control.
Quanell. I'd
And
be in Belize
for the
hanging out
sake
with
of-
Jay Clance just
and-
like that.
And for the sake of transparency, I don't think Jay would have you on the island with him. But
Oh, I'm
for the
not
sake
saying
of-
he
for the
would, but
sake
I
of
would get my own
transparency,
place nearby
matter of fact-
and then
matter of
hang
fact,
out.
I think I can get to the island quicker than you can.
That's
But
hey,
I will
you
say
don't
this,
understand
that
that
this
this white
woman
man
should be
gets a
charged.
pass. But I will tell you, I'd be out of the country. If I did something so crazy like that, I'd be gone, right? She deserves to be in jail. I mean, she'll post bond most certainly because we got a revolving door at our criminal jail here, our county jail. But yes, you're right. Why not? Absolutely. She needs to be in jail. I'm glad that Constable Rosen fired her. I'm glad that it's not being covered up. The man was very intelligent in making the video because absent the video, she'd still be working, right?
And for the sake of transparency, this is a case I've been working on, that I've been directly involved
Which
with.
side? The cop
And
side or the?
Fighting on behalf of the victim in this case, not the cop.
Oh, that's why you call
can
it
tell-
racial.
And you
'cause
can
you're
tell
trying to
from
get
my,
that civil rights money.
from my commentary, based
Trying to
on
get
my
that taxpayer
commentary.
money.
No,
in this
no,
family dispute.
this is a violation of human and constitutional rights. That's what this is. And this is a
Trying to
violation.
get that taxpayer dollar. All of us in Houston, in Quanell's estimation, should have to pay because a woman got a call from her sister, pulled out a gun, and chased a guy down. She was off duty, right? This is her acting on her own.
I believe the man has a legitimate.
Should be paying for it.
I believe he has
there
a-
was an
I believe he
angle,
has a-
Quanell.
I believe he has a
when you said,
legitimate
"Oh,
lawsuit.
this is racism." Oh, you mean the black woman doing
I
something
believe he-
criminal to the
I
black man
believe
is
he,
racial?
I believe he has a
No.
legitimate lawsuit.
It's a
I believe he has
family
legitimate
beef.
lawsuit.
Trying to
I believe
reach
he
in
has
us
legitimate lawsuit.
taxpayer pockets.
Charles, I
Right? For
believe he has
this
legitimate
woman
lawsuit.
that should be in jail. I agree. I knew there was an angle, Quanell.
So, I would say this. We, dear brother, this man should be locked up. And I say to you, brother, in quote,
I mean, I just got called brother by
You're trying to lift the vaccine mandate in Florida, and your department and you did not even do a projection as to how this could impact public health. So you have not prepared hospitals in the Florida counties most at risk with the best treatments for any outbreaks of measles, mumps, rubella, whooping cough, polio, and you have not looked into how many kids might now get these preventable diseases. That's what you're saying?
No, that's what you said. What I'm saying is that it's an issue of right and wrong in terms of whether parents should be able to control, have ultimate authority over what happens to their kids' body.
I have to say, I'm kind of shocked that you have not done any sort of like projection or data analysis of what this is actually going to literally mean for kids in Florida. But let me just say,
in this round, here's Charles Big Angry Adams.
All right, Quanell, that was the Surgeon General of Florida, conservative, Ladapo, who was talking with Jake Tapper over there on CNN about his decision to end vaccine mandates almost universally across the board for children to do things like attend public school in Florida. I think it's absolutely insane. I think it's now largely downstream from the government lining up with many government officials and kind of compelling the medical community to lie, or those that were profit oriented. There were many people that made quite a bit of money off of COVID vaccine, but we all remember the lie, right? We remember the lie that if you got the shot, that you wouldn't get COVID, you couldn't pass COVID, you couldn't communicate it. It was all a lie, right? We had a government that was telling us there was no cocktail, there was no other solution, there was no way to treat this other than this vaccine. They called ivermectin a very successful, very long time drug. We're calling it a horse dewormer. And we're doing all of these things, right? Which were pretty evil on the government's part. And it looks like to make some people billions and billions of dollars, right? And so we saw all this nonsense. We saw these people being compelled to get these mRNA vaccines that haven't been subjected to the rigor that is typically required for vaccines to be mass produced and to be to have these mass mandates. And in fact, we're seeing them given to all kind of people. I think that was wrong. But equally, I think it's absolutely insane to talk about like mumps and rubella and other very well researched, decades effective measles vaccines, other things that have allowed the world to end things like polio. The epidemic of polio is largely gone, and at least in the Western world, the first world. All kinds of diseases have been eradicated through the efficacy of vaccines. And it's absolutely insane because, listen, Joe Rogan recently talked about how prior to the pandemic, he wasn't much of a conspiracy theorist. And after the pandemic, he just kind of believes everything. Obviously, that was tongue in cheek, but that's how so many Americans are. And there's a lot of people on the right that are exploiting those fears that were created by the government lying to us to now make irrational, crazy decisions that don't just threaten the health and safety of their children, but threaten the health and safety of immunocompromised children all over Florida. I think it's absolute idiocy.
Charles, I think it's perhaps a long time overdue. And I believe that the Surgeon General of Florida is going in the right direction to some degree. I believe that vaccinations, some of them are useful, but I also believe that some of them are harmful. And I
Which
also
ones do you
believe
think
that,
are useful? Which ones do you think are harmful?
let me get to that for 1 second.
Okay. I bet you know.
There's documented proof that the vaccine that they gave Black people in America for smallpox and diphtheria and malaria and polio, we later found out factual evidence that they were giving Black children in foster care fake vaccinations and actually giving them these diseases, giving them cancer and giving them AIDS. It is a fact, Charles. Google what I'm asking to you.
You're saying
right
the
now.
American government. Now,
Yes.
I do know that in the 40s, there were some horrible
No,
studies.
yes.
that were
It's in the
targeted
80s.
to
In the
children
80s and
in
90s,
foster
yes.
care,
In the 80s
white
and
and black,
90s.
in that you
No.
saw some soldiers,
Let
black
me
soldiers,
finish.
but I
Let me
believe you're
finish.
engaging
And
in
no,
absolute
in the 80s, no.
make-believe.
Google this.
So they were giving black kids AIDS. The evil
Black
government was
children
giving black kids
in,
AIDS.
in the 1980s in foster care was given
You
HIV
understand
virus
there's not a
and
vaccine for
experimented
AIDS
with them.
now,
Listen to
so
me. They gave them the HIV virus experimenting on them. Yes, do your research. Now you want to talk about information that's held from the public.
we're
You want to talk
talking
about information
about
that's going national
we're
on the
talking
media.
about
Let's
mandated
talk about the Black
vaccines
children
in
that were
Florida
given these
schools.
fake vaccinations. Let's talk about Black men in prison who were given these vaccinations in prison, which were a lie. They were given cancer. So
When
now,
did that
Charles,
happen?
when you
When?
back up in the
When and where?
1950s and 60s, Charles,
Okay,
50s and 60s,
right.
but in the
This
80s,
is
it took
2025,
place.
Cornell,
But
and
in
we're
the
talking about
1980s, it took place.
Florida saying that no
Also,
kids have to get
Let me
vaccines.
say
Can we
this.
talk about that subject, not
No.
your crazy stuff
Now,
that you always
what
want to
Florida
bring
is
out
going to
from
do-
yesteryear?
What Florida's going to do, because you don't want the facts to come out, they are going to allow parents
I'm interested
to
in
have a
facts. not your
decision in the
make-believe.
process. Because right now in Florida and many other states, parents do not have a decision in opting out whether their children receive these vaccines or not. And Charles,
Okay.
some of these vaccines have been proven if you're giving too many to a child, especially newborn children, receiving up to 8 and 9 and 17 different vaccinations at birth, it's
Kids
too
to go to
much.
school. We're
It's
not talking
too
about
much.
infants.
And then, Charles, we have to do greater research on these vaccines, like the COVID vaccine was a lie. That if you got this vaccine, or it would really help in stopping
Well, I
transmission
agree,
disease.
but
These are
we're
lies.
talking about basic,
But Charles,
regular vaccines for school-age children.
but also,
Right? Can you tell me which of those vaccines that you
now
think it's
the
okay to
polio
not
vaccine-
require and
the
send kids to
polio
school
vac-
that
the-
could possibly
my
kill
children
that are
never received
immunocompromised?
the polio vaccine. My children
But they're
never
not doing
received
the polio vaccine. They haven't
smallpox-
done a
the
polio
smallpox
vaccine in America since
Joe,
like
that
71, I
measles,
think.
that measles
Can we
vaccine.
talk
we never,
about
we never
2025,
received, Charles.
Cornell?
And I'm telling you, a lot of those vaccines are outdated
Which
and
ones?
antiquated. And the
Which
reason why
regular
they're still pushing the mandate, they're pushing the mandate because the pharmaceutical
How about
companies
measles?
are making
Can you
hundreds
agree that
of
we should get a
billions
measles
of
vaccine?
dollars, hundreds
about
of billions
measles,
of
Quanell?
dollars, Charles, in
How about
making
measles?
these vaccines.
How about measles? Is measles an okay vaccine?
I believe yes, measles is.
Okay, well, they're not going to require it.
But I'm
Isn't
gonna
that
say
a
this:
problem?
it should not be mandated on a parent to make a child receive it. No.
Okay, but should it be mandated if they want to go to school with other kids?
Now, this is what you do. You have schools set up for vaccinated kids. Then you also have a
my
school
God.
for unvaccinated
Why
kids.
can't you just give a straight answer, Quanell?
Because,
Instead
Charles,
of talking about, oh, this happened in
don't rob parents of
1930.
the right to have the option. Don't rob the parents of the right to have the option. And let me say this. The Honorable Minister Louis
There
Farrakhan
is an option. Don't
instructed
send your kid to
every
school.
Nation of Islam member and every black person in America and around the world. He told us, do not take that COVID vaccine. He said there's not been a long enough study and research into the ramifications and long-term effects. And guess what? He was absolutely right. And it was the late Dick Gregory who discovered in 1970, and in the 70s, that they were giving black children in Chicago vaccinations of SB40 that turned out to be a virulent form of a cancer causer.
Okay. Again, 2025. We're talking about kids going to
And
public
that
schools
same devil from
that are not
1950s,
vaccinated.
60s, 70s, and the 80s, that same devil exists today.
Who's the devil?
The devil is the wicked mindset of the rulers who would put wealth
Who are
before
the
health
rulers?
and poison
Just say
innocent
it.
people
Just say
in
white
the name
people,
of
Quanell.
vaccinations when
Just
those
say you're crazy.
vaccinations
Oh,
are
you're
nothing
crazy,
more than
Quanell.
poisoning an
Oh,
entire
you're
people.
crazy. The evil whitey. It is your rhetoric
Excuse
that led
me.
to that poor girl getting stabbed on the train in Charlotte.
No,
right?
Charles.
This demonization
Many
of white people. And
are waking up in America that you
sometimes
don't
you're
need
brave
those
enough to
vaccines.
actually say it, but other times you use coded language.
You said
rulers,
something
as
that
if
was
all
powerful,
of white
though.
people are getting together and having
I said
meetings.
nothing
and
about
saying,
white people,
hey, how can we
but it was
oppress
white
black
people
guys?
conducting those illegal
How
experiments.
come
It
yeah,
was
we,
white
we had a
people
white
giving
meeting,
black people
Quanell.
those
We had a
wicked
white meeting and
vaccines
said,
and giving
hey,
us AIDS
how
and
can
giving
we
us
repress
cancer and
Quanell
giving us gonorrhea
specifically?
and giving us syphilis. White people were doing that.
You
That's
got,
a fact.
hey, Quanell, if you got syphilis, you got it on your own,
No,
and you should start acting
the
right. If
Tuskegee
you got
experiment
gonorrhea,
was
you
based
got
on
it out in
syphilis
them
study
streets,
by the U.S.
Quanell,
Army,
and you should start
Department of
acting right. At
Warfare,
least
Charles.
jimmy it up,
The
right?
U.S. Army
At least
gave
wrap
black
it up,
men syphilis.
Quanell. Come on.
The U.S.
That's it for the Face-Off on Fox Soul. We'll catch you next time.
The worst freaking state to live in right now is Texas, and nobody's talking about it.
I've spent 30 years in the insurance industry. What I'm about to tell you will explain why Texas pays more for car insurance than any other state in the country, and how you could fix it and save up to 80% on your rate. Let me make this simple. If you're paying over $75 a month, you're being overcharged. Drivers in Texas are being charged almost 2 times more for the same coverage compared to the rest of the country. Because you pay the most, the industry sees Texas as one giant cash cow, and most people have no clue why. You have the lowest claim frequency, are the safest drivers in the country, and still pay the highest rates. And here's the part no one talks about. Most people don't realize there's a new way to force them to recalculate your rate because no one told you yet. My best friend Alan lives in Houston, perfect record, had been paying $170 a month for 15 years. I told him to try my website. He found the same coverage for $68. That's a 60% reduction just by going through my website instead of theirs. But they won't call you with a better rate. Why would they? They don't want to lower your rate if they don't have to. You need to be proactive. Go through my service and get what you deserve. When you click below, you'll reach my website
where you just fill out an application. Takes about 5 minutes. It will ask for your zip code, about your vehicle, and some other information. Then it will show you what you qualify for. That's why Texas drivers using the site are claiming rates as low as $39 a month. After 3 decades in this industry, here's the truth you need to hear. If you're a homeowner, have multiple vehicles, and/or are already insured, the amount you will save will be even more. If you have any combination of those, we used to call you triple advantage clients who are highly sought after by the industry. My father-in-law in Dallas was paying $250 a month for 2 cars, and he applied through the site and dropped to $50 a month. No downgrade in coverage, just taking advantage of his situation. Listen closely. Right now, you actually hold the leverage. End of the year means one thing: industry quotas, and they need new policies on the books fast. When you check your rate through my official website, carriers are forced to recalculate your rate without penalizing you for the state you live in. Right now is the best time to act, and once quotas are filled, this pricing window can tighten back up. I've seen this cycle for decades. Most people never check rate and stay stuck paying more. We call them sleepers, not bad.
It's time for today's face-off on Fox Soul. Challengers Quan LX and Big Angry Adams, ready to go blow by blow on those hot topics. Face-off on Fox Soul starts right now.
And we are choosing to air part of the video so that people can understand how random this attack was and how it just could have been anyone on that light rail. The suspect, the Carlos Brown, is already on the light rail when the victim, Irina Zarutska, gets on Friday, August 22nd, right around 10 p.m. Brown sits behind her for about 4.5 minutes. He doesn't seem to look in her direction at all, doesn't even seem to notice she's there until suddenly, out of nowhere, he pulls out a knife. Zarutska has no idea what's coming. The suspect quickly stabs her 3 times and then just walks off as if nothing happened, leaving her to die. So sad. And Brown changes clothes and runs off the light rail at the very next stop. Now, Brown is in jail, charged with murder, and he's being held without bond.
Quanell, there are plenty of videos out there that don't have the young woman's face blurred. She's an incredibly young, blonde Ukrainian immigrant who had come to this country, was working. She had just left the pizza shop where she worked and was taking the light rail home. It was unique in how this, firstly, zero national media attention until there was a groundswell of outcry about the zero national media attention, with the exception of conservative outlets. And now there has been, and you have like Axios, the journalist Mark A. Caputo wrote an article where he castigated MAGA's response and suggested that surveillance videos being leaked showing the actuality of what happened are the problem, not, of course, the murder. But you even heard how this woman, this journalist, the local journalist, framed it as, oh, we don't know what happened. We don't know why. Random, right? If you didn't have the blurred face, you would see that the single Caucasian woman walked in, sat down, and then got brutally stabbed to death, stabbed many, many times, and murdered for doing absolutely nothing by an African-American man. And we know that if the races were reversed, we would have been deluged with national media attention, and the assumption would be this was an awful racially motivated attack. We don't ever have these discussions, right? That there's some discussion on conservative spaces that he had been arrested 14 times, most of them for violent crimes with very little consequence, although I think there was an aggravated robbery he did a few years. But immediately after that parole, he started being violent again, assaulting his sister with no consequence. And we have the mayor of Charlotte, an African-American woman. She's come out and made all of these grandiose statements about the need for more mental health care, and basically laying the groundwork as the city leader for this man to seek to get off for his crime for being crazy. Now, all murderers are crazy. The legal question is, of course, whether or not they appreciated what they did was wrong. And of course, him disrobing and throwing away his bloodstained clothes and fleeing suggests that he absolutely knew what he was doing wrong. So crazy really doesn't have much to do with his culpability. But at the end of the day, what we're not talking about is this appears to be facially a racially driven murder. It's not being discussed by any media. It's being wholly ignored. And the truth is that if we saw it happen in reverse, it would be on every headline. And another truth that no one wants to talk about, if you look at just murders in America, the white people are murdered by black criminals at a 2-to-1 ratio, right? In raw numbers, right? And when you, of course, make a per capita math, you look at the difference in population sizes, it's between 6 and 7 times more likely for a white person to be murdered by a black criminal than a black person to be murdered by a white criminal. And of course, if you look at victim crime as a whole, it is a white person is 31 more times likely to be a victim of a victim crime perpetrated by a black criminal than a white criminal is to perpetrate a crime against a black victim. We talk about the homogeneity of crime, and there's only one demographic of criminals, not all people, criminals, that seem to love to spread it everywhere. And we never have these discussions. What do we do in America? But Daniel Penny, when he restrains a guy threatening people, it's all racism all the time, force-fed everybody's throat, right? But we see time and time again, we just in Auburn, Alabama, just this week, a white woman walking her dog in a park, a veterinarian, a very popular veterinarian, he was hatcheted to death by a young black man in another completely unprovoked attack. And it is my thought that in the last 10 years, 15 years of America, we've had this narrative, a lot from you, about the evilness of whitey, right? How we need to do away with whiteness. White, bad. And does this seem, Quanell, to you like this is the consequence of people hate mongering on people with white skin, that now we have crazy people every week randomly attacking and murdering people, and the media just absolutely ignores the racial angles?
Well, Charles, let me first say that we extend our sympathies and deepest condolences to her family. She was the victim of an evil, wicked attack. And it's very obvious this man who committed this crime should be put away in prison for the rest of his life, if not face the death penalty, because she did absolutely nothing to deserve to be attacked. She's innocent, and what happened was evil and wrong. But if you look at the history of these public transportation systems, these rail systems, these subway systems, you see these brutal attacks against all races of people, including black people, by black people also. And so I don't think, and I don't see any evidence anywhere that suggests that race played a role or was the motivation in her attack. Because the same man that we're speaking of now, this criminal, this evil, wicked individual, has been committing crimes against black people for a long time. And race was never the motivating factor. He's also committed crimes against others. If there was something here, legitimately, that where when he was attacking her, he was yelling racial slurs, making statements like that, there's nothing there. But there's proof that this man has a systemic mental health problem and mental health history. And when you watch the video, you can tell something is psychologically wrong with this man because of what he did. But what I also was shocked about, the number of other men that were on the subway who witnessed this attack, and nobody intervened. Nobody tried to restrain him. Nobody tried to stop him. And that's the problem. We're seeing this more and more, where people are being butchered and attacked in public transportation systems, and people are not intervening to protect these people. But Charles, I see that you love to turn it into a race issue because the perpetrator is black and the victim is white. When you look at America's public transportation and parks, where the veterinarian was attacked, you have more people of color being attacked by other people of color, and you have more people of color being attacked on public transportation systems by people of color, and it has nothing to do with race. Just because this sick individual, in this case, targeted, as you want to say, a blonde-haired white woman, and bring up her blonde hair, which don't mean a damn thing about what happened to her on this subway. So I disagree with you, Charles. I don't believe race played a role in this whatsoever. And then when you make the argument, oh, there's no public outcry, there's no public attention.
Black people have been saying that for 100 years about the media in America, that multiple Black people die every weekend, in inner cities of America by the 10s, 20s, 30s, and even sometimes the 50s. And there is no public global attention. There is no national outcry. So now that a white person dies, you feel because a Black person did it and a Black person's the murderer, the victim is white, that it should be a national case. Guess what, Charles? It happens every day in the Black community where Black people murder each other in Houston, Chicago, Dallas, Los Angeles, New York, Philadelphia, Memphis, and kids are being murdered too, and they don't turn out to be national major media cases. I don't think race had anything to do with this. And the concocted statistics that you like to bring up all the time.
Actual statistics, actual data, real numbers.
White people who want to put racial narratives on crimes where race has nothing to do with it is not going to fly with me, because trust me, I see some statistics that contradict the very ones that you put out, and I see others contradicting those. So at the end of the day, Charles, let's stop trying to make race an issue in crimes where race had nothing to do with it. What you had was an innocent victim who was a victim of a crime who didn't deserve it, and a sick individual who just so happened to be Black who carried out that crime. But I don't think race played a role in it all.
Well, you know, it's interesting that you say that I am trying to make a racialized issue, because what I'm talking about is the failure to address the issue of race holistically by the legacy media.
No, you brought up race into this.
I like
race
to
has
talk,
nothing to do with it.
But the truth is that you make everything an issue of race if it can't.
I didn't bring up race one time.
In your bread and butter, that's your career. That's what you do for
brought
a
up
living.
race
I'm talking
this,
again. I let you talk.
Argument,
And here you are just interrupting over and over again because you don't want to have real discussions, right? If you looked on that bus, it was filled with people of color, right? And this one white woman gets on and sits down, and this guy stabs her to death for absolutely no reason without provocation, right? Mark Caputo from Axios writes about the horror of releasing the surveillance tape, of having too much surveillance footage, right? Which is insane, right? And the horror of MAGA, as opposed to talking about the horror of this attack, which I appreciate you gave some lip service to, but then you said, oh, well, da. But the truth is, we would all be force-fed with the horror of it on the front page of every paper, a sea of protests and marches if the races were reversed. But when you reverse it, no one cares. And you talk about men not intervening. On this very show, you went on for weeks and weeks and weeks about the evil of Daniel Penny when he did intervene. And we saw all the media
intervened against a man who attacked no one.
The media platform by putting up pictures
intervene against a man who didn't commit a crime.
From a decade ago, pretending this guy was a young, nice kid when he was terrorizing people, and Mr. Penny had to go all the way.
But he committed no crime.
In this case, diverse jury verdict
in this case, in the Daniel Penny case, the Black victim committed no crime.
In people actually standing up and helping people, because God forbid a white guy does it, we can rest assured in many big cities he would be held to account. And you talk about all the Black law-abiding citizens being victimized and murdered. Yeah, you're the same guy that was going crazy about Donald Trump putting the National Guard in Washington, D.C., where we've seen 0 Black people get murdered since he did it, right? So
but he has no long-term plan. But he has no long-term plan.
Everybody.
What good is it to just go into Washington and for 2 to 3 weeks or a month and then leave? What good did you do if you have no long-term plan? That's a political photo op, Charles. But what happens after the political photo op is gone and the troops are gone? What's the long-term plan?
Saved. How about all the people that are
but if there's no long-term plan, it's just a band-aid on cancer.
Murdered because a president, and I don't care what party, took action. It's the same with Chicago. Now, let me tell you something as an attorney. If there's stomping on people's constitutional rights, I would have a problem.
Not a single life has been lost. I give him credit for criminals. But I can't give him credit for having no long-term plan of
what our big cities aren't doing. They're not doing a damn thing about crime. They're just saying, oh, crime is down. And they're ignoring the fact that crime statistics are largely down because people see the futility of reporting it. Because cops don't show up when you call them.
Crime with a band-aid on cancer. We cannot have some quick fix solution, and then when the troops are gone, crime
Mayor
comes
of
back.
Charlotte
Where's
said,
the long-term
we can
plan?
incarcerate ourselves out of crime. We absolutely can. Right?
No, we
if you
cannot.
are somebody that commits
You
violence
can't
against
build-
other people,
you cannot
if
build
you're in prison,
enough
you're
prison
not hurting other people.
to stop crime, Charles. What we have to do is put real long-term meaningful plans in place. Donald Trump is going to remove those troops. You got to renew that every 30 days. When they leave, if they leave with no real long-term tangible plan of action in place, then
This is you. This is you complaining about action.
There is no
to
race in
stop
this murder case.
crime. Right?
Race
and this
plays no
is
role in
you
this murder
saying,
case.
oh, well, this obviously isn't race. He
But you
obviously
brought it
didn't
up.
stab her because
But
she
you
was
brought it
white,
up.
the only white
But you
person
brought
on
it
the
up.
train. And he didn't stab any of the people of color.
But
And it
Charles,
wasn't because she was
where's
white
the
at
proof
all.
of race played a
At all.
role? Where's the proof of race played a role?
Case. How was a man able to check out a Kirby High School student while pretending to be her brother? WREG's Raven Copeland reports from Hickory Hill, where many are just shocked and disappointed this evening.
A disturbing situation reported at Kirby High School this week. Memphis police say 23-year-old Kevin Talley Jr. checked a 16-year-old student out of school after he pretended to be her brother.
I'm not sure as to why that was accepted or allowed at the school, but they definitely need to do more thorough and deep research and getting those IDs and everything and making sure they're getting and keeping track of who's taking the students out of the school.
The affidavit shows Talley then drove to an unknown location and engaged in a sexual act with the child. After, Memphis police say the suspect drove to a Walgreens to get money out of an ATM, but he allegedly refused and attempted to leave the teen, but she jumped back into the car. Talley's accused of dropping the child off at Kirby High, where she told deputies about the sexual act and Talley's refusal to pay her the $60.
Charles, this is really an unbelievable story. It's shocking, and you really can't make this stuff up. That in 2025, we now have students running their own prostitution rings on campus during school hours and arranging for the Johns, the tricks, those who seek to pay these young students, these young girls for sex, to come to the school and go to the front office and check them out and bring them back after having sex with them and paying them. This is happening right under the noses of the teachers, the administrators, the alleged security officers on campus, Charles. When the policy and the practice should be, and in all schools from what I've known it with my own children, to where before you can pick a child up, you have to give them your ID. And they run your ID to check for criminal background checks. And they run your ID to make sure you're on the child's approved checkout list. If you're not on the list approved of by the parents to check that child out, you cannot remove that child. So what the hell was the administration doing, letting a strange man come on campus, check this young girl out for the purpose of having sex with her and paying her? And it was only because he did not pay her what she wanted and what they agreed to, that she jumped out and went and told the police and told the school officials. This is sick. But this is not the first time, Charles. There's a prostitution ring that was being ran just a couple of years ago in Manville High School in Texas, Manville, Texas, at the Manville High School. There was other arrests and indictments in Spring, Texas, at another high school in Spring, Texas, where the teacher was the pimp, the lead orchestrator of having students used as prostitutes, working with her son, doing school hours. This is why parents now are pulling their children out of the public school system in America. This is why many parents don't feel safe sending our children to school in public school systems in America. You now have Texas leading the nation in teacher inappropriate relationship with students on campus. You have Texas leading the nation now on mass shootings and also crimes being committed against fellow students by students. Charles, all of this bullshit is out of control. What has happened to the public school system in America? And that's why many, including myself, support charter schools, Support smaller schools that can be better supervised and secured. The American public school system has turned into an absolute joke.
Well, I mean, Cornell, I have long on the show advocated for public schools that are smaller than public high schools, cap them at 500 people. We don't need $5 million auditoriums, $80 million football stadiums, and these giant football teams. We don't need it. It shouldn't be the priority for teams to compete on a state and national level. The priority should be student participation. The smaller the school, the more kids get to play sports or be involved in extracurricular activities. I don't think that prostitution of students is such an endemic problem that it is causing parents to pull children out of schools and come out of their own pocket to pay for the added fee costs of charter schools or private schools. I think that instead is all downstream from Obama era education policies that have culminated now in not disciplining students, determining the degree of discipline about race, about passing kids, not having a real metric, right, and pushing kids to the next grade instead of failing them when they're not. We have kids graduating. We talked about a young woman at UConn that graduated from high school who still couldn't read, right? We see statistics out of cities like Chicago where only a very, very small fraction of kids are reading at grade level. Right now in New York, you have Zohran Mamdani, the front runner for winning this mayoral contest there, who wants to do away with admission-based, application admission, merit-based charter schools in New York and do away with honors programs under the high school level because they're discriminatory, right? As opposed to saying, hey, we need to encourage kids. But the real problem with schools, the biggest problem, is the failure to discipline. And that yoke falls greatest on rule following, hardworking, law abiding African American students across this country in our biggest cities, because they have no protection and no hope in these impoverished schools, right, where there is absolute craziness. It's right here in Houston where kids go to school every day and they don't feel safe, right? And teachers, the ones that care, because there are teachers that care, there are plenty of those that don't, but there are plenty that do, right? They just have their hands tied. And then you have like the head of the teachers union in Chicago, who's a big anti-disciplinarian, and she's quite the loudmouth. Where do her kids go to school? Well, they go to private school, of course. So while this story is disgusting, it's awful. The whole story of pretending to be the brother reminds me of Ferris Bueller pretending to be Sloane's dad and picking her up in the stolen Ferrari from Ferris Bueller's Day Off with much more sinister circumstances, right? And this guy who hopefully will spend decades in prison, probably not, Memphis, far left DA, but hopefully will spend decades in prison for sexual assault of a child, is brought all of this on being a predator monster, but also being a con artist and a skinflint who didn't want to pay for what he promised this young girl that doesn't have the capacity to consent.
That doesn't matter to me.
That's it for the Face Off on Fox Soul. We'll catch you next time.
If you can't quit the P word, I want to let you know that scripture tells us that successful men are often the ones that deal with this, from David to Solomon to Samson. For the last 4 years after opening the door to Unchained Leader, we've seen a very similar pattern of what's described in here, of guys coming in that are from every major sports league that you can imagine, the MLB, the NBA. These aren't just guys that sit on the bench. These are guys that are on the cover of magazines. We have guys that are as high up in the military as you can possibly get. We have CEOs that you would know the names of, and also famous pastors that have come in that if I told you the name, you would know who they are. And we're actually going to walk you through scripture of like where it actually outlines all of this stuff. And so maybe this is something that you've been asking for an answer for quite some time. And I want you to consider that maybe you're not seeing this video by coincidence, but by design. And here's the thing, you're not going to know or not unless you investigate. And so what I want you to do is go ahead and click the link below, register and watch that video. And the first thing you're gonna see inside of that video is actually documentation and videos from other men, not just 1, 2, or 3, but multiple men that have been walking through a very similar battle that you may be fighting right now. They're gonna talk about all the things that they tried that did not work and what finally changed the game for them and started to lead them in a direction where they can finally walk in freedom without being tormented and distracted by all of these things. One of the things that guys say when they come through this video is they start to gain clarity of how this really bleeds into all areas of their life, from being a father and a husband to a business owner to a leader inside of their church and community to even just being a good friend to other people. And they start to realize how this actually affects their ability to connect with other men in a deep and meaningful way, the way that's described in here from a brotherhood standpoint. And so it's cool because when you watch that video by clicking the link below, you're going to see a process that's been trusted by over 9,000 other men. And I can't describe to you the feeling of walking through the door of a program like this and being exposed to the fact that there really are over 9,000 other men that are struggling with the exact same things that, for me, I thought that I was the only one for most of my life. And maybe you felt like, you know, either you're the only one or like one of the few. And man, it's just it's a deception straight from our adversary. And when you actually start to take steps forward in truth, which is going to take a leap of faith, and it's very difficult, and you should feel some resistance around it right now. But I want you to consider that on the other side of resistance is freedom. And we see that pattern over and over and over again. Take a leap of faith, register for the video, and see if God shows up and listen to what he has to say. And maybe it's an answer to some stuff that you've been asking for answers for who knows how long. And so I want to ask you just one last question. What is it worth to live a life no longer plagued by this? Is 60 minutes of your time worth potentially discovering the one thing that could move you into a state of life where you're not bombarded and chained up by all of these things that you know have been limiting you for who knows how long? Is 60 minutes of your time worth potentially discovering that and living a life in freedom? And so if the answer is yes, I want you to click the link below, register, watch that video right now, and I will see you in the video.
The only MAGA Trump Republican for comptroller, Don Huffine, stands with President Trump to eliminate all taxpayer-funded benefits to illegal aliens, because the money belongs to you, not the government. Vote Don Huffines for comptroller.
It's time for today's face-off on Fox Soul. Challengers Quan LX and Big Angry Adams, ready to go blow by blow on those hot topics. Face-off on Fox Soul starts right now.
Okay, hold on, pause. This is what we're not doing. So every time that he does this, I'm gonna record this. That's not okay. I'm just letting you know. No, the thing is, this is the third time he's done it. This is the third time he's done it. He doesn't want to go with you. So actually show up. Actually show up and do something then with him. Because he does this every time. No, it's not. No, it's not. It ain't because anybody babysitting. You're getting his bag and stuff?
That's terrible. 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah, no, it's not that at all. No, it's not. Yeah, I will. But I'm telling you right now, every single time I'm here and he's quiet, we're going to record that. And it's up with me. Just know that it's up.
What'd you say? What'd you say?
I didn't stutter.
I didn't hear you say.
My
If you had one, maybe I would.
I would.
And what you looking
on my way?
Get your out my driveway.
You don't pay for either. $170,000 to your
Put $11,000 in your son's bank account. $11,000 in your son's bank account. Put $100 for that bill.
In this round, here's Quan LX.
watched a video that has gone viral across the country of a social media personality from, say, an influencer, Sister Brittany Renner, and also a child's father, PJ Washington, who was a current NBA basketball player. And he was there, obviously, to pick up his son. Obviously, it must have been his quote unquote time of possession with their joint custodial agreement with the young child. She was upset that the child was crying because he didn't want to go with the father. His father's an NBA basketball player who travels all around America so many months. So it is difficult for him to really be there for that child as much as he would like to be, because most professional athletes are really never at home. They're traveling all over America. She decided to film the exchange. What's her motivation for filming the exchange? I don't know. But Brittany is a smart woman. She's an intelligent sister. But the way she conducted herself in this situation, along with her mother, was extremely distasteful, disrespectful, and it really portrays Mr. Washington as the victim in this case. But I don't like Brother PJ saying to her mother, out of anger, out of frustration, and to some degree outrage, to suck his penis. You don't talk like that to any woman, dear brother. You're talking like that to his grandmother in front of the child, in front of the child's mother and your wife in the car. You don't stoop to such levels, brother, because obviously you're being gaslit to some degree and provoked. So that response would come out so they could get it on recording. But it's awful what we see. But these stories are happening all over America with these exchanges of children in time of possession. It's happening with rich people and poor people in this country, white and black. It's awful that what we're seeing is taking place, but I've seen many horror stories when you have custody battles and children who are being fought between parents to choose which one has possession of the child. I've seen horror stories of things that they make up, things that they create, and things that they allege just to win possession of the child. I don't like the language by either side in this case, but I do believe both of them could have handled themselves much, much better and much more civilized. And I would say to Sister Brittany, you converted to Islam. Is that the character? Is that the conduct? Is that the language of a woman who believes in the grace and mercy of Allah?
Well, if I'm recalling correctly, when she got divorced from Kevin Gates, she ceased to wear the hijab and got a lot of criticism from Islam. I'm shocked at the degree of criticism that you've had for PJ Washington. He plays for, what does he play for, the North Carolina?
No, he's in the NBA.
Yeah, I
Was
know
it
he's
Charlotte or Dallas? Was it Dallas Mavericks?
Charlotte, North Carolina. Yeah, no, I know he's NBA power forward. You know, he used some foul language, but when you say viral video, this wasn't a video that just happened to go viral, right? Miss Renner is a social media influencer. She has been on a variety of reality television shows, Real Housewives kind of stuff. She was a athlete herself, a collegiate soccer athlete, I think, at Jackson State. A talented, skilled, intelligent woman who, as you said, her mother didn't strike me as intelligent. Maybe if I had a more robust viewing of her, she seemed like an awful, awful human being, right? And maybe they have a real reason to be mad at PJ Washington. Maybe he ran around, maybe he did her dirty, maybe. But if you look at this through the lens of just this encounter, right? Babies cry, toddlers scream. They do it when you drop them off at daycare. They do them when you drop them off with their grandparents. They do it, period. But we also have in America, and fathers of all races, is fathers having kids and then becoming non-participatory financially and, actually physically participating. That doesn't appear to be the case with either situation. I heard them chirping, oh, your baby only has $11,000 in his account. That just shows you someone that's got a pretty horrible perspective.
Right.
As a toddler, having $11,000 in their account is pretty amazing, right? And would, mean that toddler's got enough money to have everything he needs that month, pretty much anywhere in America, right?
Right.
We heard PJ say, well, you don't pay for nothing, to suggest that possibly PJ is paying for the home and a lot of other things. But I don't know that for a fact. And it does seem like Miss Renner's been pretty successful herself. But this was all a setup, right? I'm going to start filming this. He's cried 3 times in a row. This was a bully. This was an effort to be able to show, and I say this is from a lawyer's perspective, and I haven't done family law in a long time, But to say, we're recording this so we can return to court and suggest that it is harmful for you to have visitation. And there is nothing more harmful in a child's life, and it's been proven time and time again, especially in Black America, where you have the highest rate of non-participatory fathers, right? There's nothing more harmful for a child, male or female, to deny, as long as it's not an abusive father, a pedophile, some horrible dad, right? But to deny the participation of the father in the child's life is a horrible thing for almost all children, and has very much become very clear it is a horrible, horrible thing for a tremendous number of young Black Americans who don't have a participatory father. And it's very clear, and you might talk about his basketball schedule in this, it's very clear from our own statements, he's participating. Of course, no toddler wants to leave their mother, right? Even if the father lived in the home, almost every toddler wants to be with their mother. That's the maternal bond. I know in this post-gender America where we just act like none of it matters, but it does matter, right? And we do have this America where, everything's transitory. Relationships are transitory. I mean, children would be better served. And I know this is a bitter pill for all the divorced people in America that have kids, but children would be better served if both parents were in the home. But when both parents aren't in the home, it's very important that they both participate. And clearly, PJ is participating. And clearly, he had enough of Brittany Renner and her mom's bullcrap.
It still does not excuse him telling the grandmother to suck his penis in front of his child and knowing he's being recorded. The best thing Brother PJ could have done was made no comment at all, get in the car, and when that video is released, use that video to show that she's attempting to alienate the father from the child. Then that would have backfired on her.
That's what the video shows.
That's exactly what he should have done, not use the term "suck my penis."
Yeah, no, I mean, his behavior wasn't appropriate. He was clearly frustrated.
There was a recent study that said that yes, Black men who are split from the mother of the children, or all men who are split from the mother of the children, that Black men are some of the highest, most engaged fathers with their children who in divorces from Black women. In divorce,
to make stuff up. I love it.
Charles, wait a minute, Charles. No, Charles, wait a minute. In cases where the Black father was married to the mother,
okay,
statistically, the Black father in that divorce, if they get divorced,
that's different, isn't it?
The highest engaging of all fathers. Now, in cases where the mother and father was not married, the baby mama drama, then we're the most single parent households without a father. Okay. But that study is out there for you to see. Just Google it. Charles, let me say this. This is happening all over America. Charles used to practice family law for a while. You and I both know in family law, the family courthouse is nicknamed the Palace of Perjury because like I know, some of the most grotesque lies, the worst concocted lies take place in custody battles involving two parents who split, who are fighting over the children. I don't like it. I hate it, Charles. But this is happening everywhere, all over America. And now do you know that even across every racial line except Asians in America, that now that single parent household is on a sharp increase, not a decline for every race in America?
No, it's awful. I mean, it's been going on since the late 70s, right? When the divorce epidemic took off. We both grew up in single parent households, right? And I mean, I think it's a horrible, horrible thing for America. And I think when I don't know, I don't think they were ever married, right? I think she was married to the rapper Kevin Gates and just had a baby with PJ Washington.
And she's much older than him.
Right. But you have a guy taking responsibility financially and present. And clearly she's trying to disrupt his ability to be present for the child. And while he might have used some ugly words, I have no criticism for a man of any race who is participating aggressively in his child's life. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And when a woman or a man tries to disrupt it and exclude a parent from participating, I think they're the problem. And very clearly, she was trying to create a mechanism to keep him from exercising his visitation because the kid was crying.
She lent the appearance of
and saying, "Hey, this is Daddy. He loves
It
you. He's gonna
was.
take you. You're
It
gonna have
was.
fun."
She did have the appearance of the bitter baby mama drama. But Charles, I will say this: to every father, be very careful and wise what you say in anger about that child's mother in front of that child.
Well, every
Because trust
parent.
me, you may not know it, but subconsciously you're wounding your child's psyche when you speak foul about the other parent in the presence of that child. Try your best to refrain from that. And no matter what the other parents say about you, you show that child through your actions and conduct that you are better than the lies being told about you.
I mean,
But
you
don't
look at
use
all
that.
the anger and toxicity is damaging to that toddler. I think it was driven by the mother and the grandmother. And I mean, yeah, he said some ugly things, but who knows what he's been putting up with. Now, I'll say this, who knows what Brittany's been putting up with. But from that incident, he seemed to be the one trying to drive a wedge. And a real mother, I'm going to say this, a real mother of any race would be consoling her child while they were having tears and explaining to them, "Hey, baby, you and Daddy are going to have fun. Hey, baby, you have fun with Daddy. You're going to be home in just a couple
Right.
days. Daddy's going to do
Right.
fun stuff with you. I love you."
Right.
You didn't
Right.
hear any of that. She was weaponizing the child's tantrum in the most awful way. And she's the one that should be ashamed of herself, not BJ.
Greed started to come in. It's like I needed more, I need more, I need more. When I really didn't need it. I knew that if I sent private messages with the top off, I would get more money. If a woman was to go and sign up for OnlyFans and she's like, "Oh, I'm only gonna do bikini photos," I promise you it's gonna lead to more and more, and we're gonna keep asking for more things. They wanna see more and more and more.
Some people say, well, pornography breaks people apart. It shatters relationships. In our case, it's made it just so much stronger.
It's going to be fun.
I think so, Dave.
What has given me real joy is the fact that so many people who are older say things like, "Wow, this is something I can watch with my wife."
In this round, here's Quanell X.
Charles, that was a very interesting segment. We have on this show several times discussed women who have turned their OnlyFans pages into careers selling sexual images, sexual acts, and everything dealing with sexual activity under the sun. Black China, very popular social media woman who had a child, I believe, from one of the Kardashian brothers, Kim Kardashian's brother, and very popular, who also had an OnlyFans page. She made millions, but now she is saying, like so many of those young women are saying, it was a mistake. Because the scripture of the Bible teaches us, what does it profit a man or a woman to gain the world, but same time lose your soul? She recognizes, like so many other young women, that selling sex online in any capacity comes back to haunt you and robs you of your humanity, robs you of your dignity and your self-respect, to where sick-minded men turn you into a piece of meat for their pleasure. And she spoke about they keep asking for more and more and more, because the more you reveal, the more freakier the freaks are, and the freaks want you to get. But a lot of these young women, I think, should hear what she is saying and other young women are saying, because it's a financial windfall for you at the moment, but the long-term effects could be devastating. And if you notice, when she was giving her interview, she was sitting inside of a church. And so obviously that suggests to me that she is back now relying completely on her faith in God and the word of God to provide for her and her child and to lead her life.
Well, Cornell, we've seen this for the last, 30 or 40 years, an effort to convince women in the West, and specifically America, that it is empowering to have casual sex. That is an empowering, that sex work is real work and nothing to be ashamed of. And that selling your body is an appropriate vehicle to obtain your financial goals for women, right? And I'll say this: if men could, take pictures of their taint and sell it on anything on OnlyFans or anywhere else to make a lot of money, dudes will be doing it all over the place, right?
How
But
you
I've
know?
seen some of the numbers for this younger generation, like sub 30-year-old generation, where it's like 2 out of 10 women, some absurd number, percentage of young American women have had an OnlyFans, right? And of course, the overwhelming majority of women on OnlyFans don't have any success, right? Financially, it's a trap that they don't actually make money at. You do hear about the anomalies, people making more than professional athletes, making tens of millions of dollars a year, performing and being nude and chatting and communicating, as Black China pointed out. But we also, there was a weird clip. There was a dichotomy in that clip that you did not mention. Of course, you had Black China, who had a child with Rob Kardashian, but before that, she had a child with the successful rapper Tyga. She had herself a successful career that I think both began as a stunt double for Nicki Minaj in some music video. It led to Drake and the mention and all this. And she was, she had reality TV. She seems to have torn down a lot of her life on her own. She famously sued and lost, suing the Kardashians for defamation. And then she went into this OnlyFans where she was making some real money because it was tied to her celebrity, right? And her exotic appearance. But we need to start having truthful conversations. The people behind OnlyFans, the people behind all these porn sites, you know what they all are? They're all men, right? And they're all men making a fortune by convincing women that it's empowering to exploit themselves. Now, the current paradigm is far better than the historic paradigms of pornography, right? Where you had monsters like Hugh Hefner. If you read about Hugh Hefner's life, he was a horrible, despicable person. Where people like him and Larry, God, what was Larry's last
Larry
name?
Flint.
The Hotspur guy.
Larry Flint.
Yeah, Larry Flint. Where they made all the money and the models made hardly any money. And the same thing with the porn industry as a whole, right? It was before OnlyFans, it was the porn platforms like, we banned them in Texas largely, but it was the companies that made all the money and the women who participated in the content made very, very
I
little.
believe it's still that to this day.
Right. Well, right now, there is a huge, the women are able to far better monetize it with OnlyFans than its competitors, right?
But remember, the founder of OnlyFans takes a percentage of every
he's
guy
making-
that goes
he's
to
making
female.
billion,
So he's a
right?
pimp too.
Billion.
He's a pimp too. Ain't no difference. He's a pimp. He's just paying taxes on his pimp money.
Well, I mean, a pimp suggests coercion, whereas this is people.
And you don't think
making
he's
decisions.
coercing? He's using
No, I
his
don't think it's
platform
coercing
to
women.
coerce young women into doing that to make money.
It's me. But then you see this other couple, the creepy white couple in the video. Because remember,
That's the owner. That's the owner.
No, those were content creators. That was not the owner. Those were a content creating couple where that older woman puts out content. That's what she was talking about. That the people watch us and say it helps them with their sexuality, and they're just modern swingers, right?
Right.
That guy is now he's a pimp, right? Pimping out his wife for content to make money so he can probably
Exactly.
work. And I think that they're trying to put a lipstick on the pig. I'm not calling her a pig, but I didn't find her particularly attractive. But they're trying, the situation is piggish, right? And they're trying to suggest that by doing this, it somehow brings them closer together, and it's sexual health, and it's all this, and it's absolute nonsense. It's just a way
I
to
think
make
most
money.
men. I think
Go ahead.
most men who wife decide to bring home an attractive woman, and the wife says to her husband, "Honey, I done brought us a playmate, and she's down for her crown, and she's game to do everything that you want to do."
I didn't hear
look
that discussion.
well, hell, you saw it when she kissed him. And so as she kissed the woman's husband and he smiled with the wine glass and he and his wife walked to the bedroom, most men would never want to do that when the camera is rolling. But if the camera was not there, I think most men would be like, "Oh yeah, baby, let's get it going, sweetheart. Thank you for bringing some home for us to play with, baby. I'll be right there with you shortly." But I think the camera part is what most men would object to. But hell, if your wife bring home a very beautiful, fine, sexy woman and say, "Let's get it," my Lord.
Ella and Ivory OnlyFans? You want?
No,
the
I
Lego?
can't do it.
You want
No,
the
no.
snow bunnies, the white
Nope,
queens?
nope. I have children. I can't do that.
Okay.
My
Okay.
kids would find me laying in a ditch somewhere. No, not my daughters. My daughters.
That's it for the Face Off on Fox Soul. We'll catch you next time.
Are you having trouble trying to keep up with your professor? You've got to try Otter. Here's how it works. Let's say I'm in class. I just hit record, and as you can see, everything I'm saying is turning into a transcript as I talk in real time. Because Otter is transcribing everything, I can actually listen to the professor rather than trying to type everything down, or I can zone out for a minute. I know that nothing is going to be missed, and I will be able to refer back to this transcript. If you're attending by Zoom, Otter will even capture any slides that were shared during the lecture. Imagine being able to refer back to perfect notes from all your classes for the whole semester. By the way, everything I'm showing you is free. Here's the best part. So after your class is over, you'll receive an AI-generated summary. It contains a summary of what was discussed and timestamps for the different topics shared. There's also a chatbot where you can ask questions about the lecture. For example, you could say, give me a 10-question multiple choice quiz and hide the answers. This will prompt Otter Chat to create a quiz for you based on the lecture. You could also ask, did the professor mention what will be on the test? Otter will search through the transcript and find any time the professor might have mentioned what would be on the exam. As someone who used to spend a lot of time writing and searching through notes, Otter has been a game changer. And I hope you'll check it out too. Give it a try. It's free.
My wife said, if you win, we'll fly to Asia. If I win, we'll fly to Paris. I bet you won't get toned with just Tai Chi walking before Christmas. Guess who won?
My dad can't lose weight with Tai Chi, so it's a scam?
Oh, no. He probably just doing it wrong. Most men do Tai Chi wrong, and that's exactly why they can't lose weight. How old is your father?
He is 56.
Oh, perfect. By the end of November, you won't even recognize him.
But what if he hasn't worked out in years?
That's even better. Tai Chi was built for men 40 plus.
Isn't the gym better after 40?
The gym breaks you. Tai Chi will make you feel better and lose weight faster than in your 20s.
Does he need any equipment?
No, his body is enough. Just do it for 9 minutes a day and see your body feel younger.
So what's the first step?
Click the link, get the app, and start tomorrow.
What happens if my husband starts Tai Chi tomorrow morning and follows it for 28 days?
You won't believe his results by the end of the month. This is how Tai Chi workouts work.
But what if he hasn't worked out in years?
He can start small, that's fine. This program is designed specifically for beginner men age 40 to 60 plus.
Isn't a gym better?
Gym doesn't work after 40. Do Tai Chi to live longer, healthier, and happier.
Any equipment required?
No, body is enough to build a strong physique and a clear mind.
How to start?
Just get the app and start tomorrow.
3 reasons to start Tai Chi workout this summer. In 1 week, you'll see your energy. In 2 weeks, you'll feel your breath. In 3 weeks, you'll have energy and your wife won't believe your results. Here is the personalized plan of short Tai Chi workouts tailored for beginners over 50. It takes just 7 minutes per day. Beginner friendly and requires no equipment. You can work out anytime, anywhere. Just open the app and follow along.
It's time for today's face-off on Fox Soul. Challengers Quan LX and Big Angry Adams ready to go blow by blow on those hot topics. Face-off on Fox Soul starts right now.
Shooting death of an 11-year-old boy who was playing Ding Dong Ditch.
This is a prank where you ring a doorbell and then run away, and this time it turned tragic. Fox 26's Jade Fleury is at the courthouse where we believe the man charged will face a judge, I believe, here actually in the next 30 minutes.
Leon Gonzalo is charged with murder and is expected in court here this morning. And Gonzalo has the same name and address as the property where that 11-year-old boy was shot and killed after ding-dong ditching over the weekend. The shooting happened over Labor Day weekend at a house on Mimboro in East Houston. Police say that kids were ringing doorbells and running away when a homeowner came out and shot at the kids, hitting the 11-year-old boy in the back. He died Sunday at the hospital. The shooter was questioned and released, but now we know that a man has been arrested for murder. One defense attorney gave us some insight on Texas's defense laws to see if the shooting was justified.
If you look at the bottom part of the self-defense law in the code, it says that you can use deadly force if something is stolen from you and you have a reasonable belief that you're not going to be able to get it back. But simply ringing the doorbell and running away, if the person's fleeing the scene, hasn't taken anything, hasn't broken into the house, no forcible entry, there's no threat, I just don't see something.
In this round, here's Quanell X.
Charles, what we just watched and witnessed was a very cold-blooded killing of a 10-year-old child here in Houston, Texas. It is tragic that the loss of life of such a young child has taken place because children were playing the ding-dong ditch game. It is a game that also I played as a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old when I was a child, and I'm 54 years of age. Many people don't like children playing that game because it does irritate your neighbors and things like that, but it's a game, and you notify parents, and parents discipline the children when they find out about it. But I don't see anything here that justified this man opening the door, coming out of the door, and shooting a 10-year-old child in the back and killing them for playing the ding-dong ditch game. In fact, what took police so long? Wait till the next day and a half to arrest this man. To me, there was enough evidence on the scene right there to where you tell the DA's office what's going on, and the arrest is made on the spot. I don't understand why police took so long to make this arrest, Charles.
From a defense attorney's perspective, I mean, there are some things that I'm not 100% clear on. I've seen some conflicting, reporting and social media statements. Some people are saying he opened the door and chased the children down, shooting at them as they fled, and killed the 11-year-old boy. There are other people that have suggested that he shot through the door, and if they were in fact kicking on the door, doing something to make him think they were trying to break in, then I think I don't think it's a winning argument, but I think a defense attorney could make an argument that he was defending his home from what he mistook to believe was a home invasion. If he just ran out after him and started shooting at him, I don't see that Texas law provides him any avenue for defense. We heard an attorney on the news clip from Fox 26 talk about self-defense. It's actually more of a lawful use of force to defend one's property. In Texas, we have a more robust right to use deadly force, and you're obviously not defending yourself, you're defending your property. If you think someone has stolen something, especially in the evening hours after the sunset, you have a right, if you can reasonably articulate that you thought it was necessary to use that force to protect the property. I don't think, even if he'd had prior thefts in the past, I don't think he would. I do think, you criticize the Harris County District Attorney's Office for taking 10, 12 hours, maybe a day, to figure out exactly what they wanted to charge this man with. I don't think that there was any evidence that this was a man out there looking to engage strangers. Obviously, this was a prank gone awry, and he did something horrible, evil. He's appropriately charged with murder. I think that in America, generally, we should give the government the opportunity to do the right thing. Now, in this situation, much like the horrifying shooting at the Catholic school last week from the trans shooter. Now, if you'll recall in that, Rosie O'Donnell immediately came out and said, MAGA, 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 and then actually was forced to apologize. And then the mainstream media immediately fixated upon we've got to get rid of guns, knowing that the Second Amendment precludes that, but that just constant narrative, because they did not have the evil white man narrative, because this was a trans shooter that had written things antagonistic to Donald
Well,
Trump.
he was a white
Here,
man.
hold on, just let me finish. Here, what we have is we haven't seen any activists outcries. You haven't been out there marching. And
Because
why?
a white man kills
Why?
some other people
Well, in
in a
this
mass shooting.
situation, no, I'm talking about this shooting, the Ding Dong Ditch
This
shooting.
shooting, he's white. No, the shooting, the guy's white in the trans
Maybe-
shooting.
Yeah, maybe you should read the news articles. It's a Latino man that killed a Latino child. And when you have
And
racial
no, not
homogeneity,
in the Houston
when you
case,
have
not in the
racial
Houston case,
homogeneity,
church shooting.
activists like you just don't give a damn, right? And if we always gave the state a chance,
What are we going to
and said, "Hey,
protest? He's in
state,"
jail.
if we
He's
always said,
charged with
"Hey,
murder. He's in
state,
jail.
let's see if you're going to do the right thing before we start tearing down cities," because make no mistake, had this been a white male shooter and a black child, it would have still been murder. It has still been evil. But what we'd have had was you and others leading more evil into, rioting and looting and nonsense, right?
That's an absolute lie, and that's an fabrication of the facts. This gentleman, when
Oh,
the
so,
police came to the
the
scene,
past should
there
not
was
edify
nothing-
the
there was
perception.
nothing
And what's
that took
wrong with
place,
America when it
There's
seems like
nothing
the
that took
media
place in this
cares
Houston
less
case
when it's
that
kids
justified
of color
killing that kid.
killed by other people of color, and not something that can push this narrative. This is a
But
sad,
Charles,
horrible
this is a man of
crime.
color, and this is a 10-year-old child of color.
Well, you just said he was white a minute ago, so
No,
you're going to
I
believe
said
me?
the shooter at the
No,
Catholic
no,
church
no, you
was
didn't.
white. Yes, I did.
The
The
viewers can
trans
watch.
shooter, the trans shooter that you
Oh, yeah,
said,
most certainly.
not
He
a
killed
white
white
man, that was a
children.
white man trans shooter.
Killing white children.
So, and we always see white males in these mass shootings when they shoot and kill
Actually,
soft targets.
actually, that's a lie promulgated
And
by
actually, that's a
you
lie you
and
wanna push.
others that
Everybody
share
knows. They can
your
see what time it
career
is.
of a violent nihilistic activism, right? That I mean, much like regular murder, the overwhelming mass shootings and multiple victim shootings, the sadly the majority of them are committed by African American men
And that's
in
an
America,
absolute lie.
year after year. No, it's not.
That's an
What
absolute
you're
lie.
doing is lying. Now, that doesn't condemn black men, because frankly, it's still a very small number of black men in America. And racists want to talk about violent black men and create this false equivalency between all black men, because there's a
That's what you
larger
do. But that's
percentage.
exactly
I
what you
absolutely don't. I always am very clear that I'm only talking about the bad people, white, black,
And
brown,
you love
whatever.
bringing up the
But
bad
to
black
pretend,
people, but you
to
don't bring up
continually
bad white
pretend
people at all.
that it's whitey, when the truth is that if America was all white and Asian, right, and we use the same numbers, we'd have less shootings than Norway, than Denmark, than most Scandinavian countries that are seen as the safest countries in the world.
Let me ask you a
Right?
question then.
And that's
Based on what
just
you
a
just
sad truth.
So based
Right?
on what
But
you just
really, what
said,
I wonder is why
can-
activists like you
I
don't
can name-
care when there's racial
I can name
homogeneity.
several
Don't
black and
care when
brown
you can't
countries.
blame whitey. Why
Charles,
you
I
just
can
don't
name
care at
several
all?
Black and brown
No
countries
money.
who
There's
have
no
a
money for you
lower
to make.
murder rate. Who has
I'm
a
sorry,
lower
I
murder
figured it
rate
out
in
right
America.
here
I can name several
on
black
live
and brown
TV.
countries
I
who
figured
have a
out why
lower
you don't
crime
care,
rate
Quanell,
in America.
because there ain't
So
no
we
way for
can't
you to
say
make
that
money.
crime is a black face in America, because we can name several black countries and brown countries around the hemisphere that have a lower crime and lower murder rate than America does. It's not
Right.
murder is not based on color. Murder is based on poverty.
Well, no, that's
high
actually not
unemployment
true.
rates,
All the
poverty,
evidence
high
suggests
unemployment
that the
a
poverty is just
miseducation
a
system,
scapegoat,
all
right?
of that
We need
plays
to
a
do
role.
more to combat poverty, and we need to do more to help black Americans get out of poverty, because far too many are in poverty. But
I
it
agree with
turns
you.
out
Pay
that
us
that lie is
reparations.
just a
Pay us
scapegoat. And in
reparations.
fact, the
Pay
problem is,
reparations.
I know, everything is
Pay
solved by
reparations.
giving Quanell more money.
Oh no,
right?
you're not giving. You paying black people and their descendants what you
Oh,
owe.
yeah,
them.
I would.
Put you in a position.
None of
in
my
America
ancestors ever
where
owned
you had
slaves.
privilege. And your white
None of my
privilege
ancestors
has
ever owned
existed
slaves.
in
They didn't have
America.
money. They were poor.
Tell
Right?
you what,
This is just you doing
reparations
more
is owed
lying.
to black people. You pay reparations to white slave masters in America and their firstborn sons. You can
Okay,
do it to black people.
Okay, so what we should do is historically charge people today for every wrong that was committed. So
That's
now,
what you
what
did
is it?
already.
What is it?
You did
What
that
is it?
already.
what is it like?
You did it with the Asians and Japanese in internment camp.
No, that's just more like.
You
So
did it
let's
for
look at
Indians.
robberies in America.
You
Let's
did it
look
for
at
Indians when you
violent
gave them
robberies, right?
legislation so they should pay reparations.
Should
for
Black
hundreds of
America
years.
as a whole have to pay back the victims of violent robberies, right?
that not what you're doing already?
For the life-destroying consequences, because overwhelmingly violent robberies are committed by Black male criminals. So should Black males as a whole be punished for that? Do they have an? Of course
No.
not. Of
Overwhelmingly,
absolutely, course not.
crime
Right? And then let's talk about
in
slavery.
high
I mean,
poverty
we
rich
want
areas.
globalism. Let's
Crime
talk about
flourishes
slavery
in
as
high
a
drug
planetary
infested
issue,
areas.
right?
And crime
So-
flourishes in areas with high unemployment rates. That's
Oh,
where you're
oh.
going to see the bulk of high crime. High
No,
unemployment rates,
no,
high drug
actually,
infested areas,
eh,
and also
well,
Charles, where you have
so-
poverty.
So what is the safest state in America?
You tell me, Charles. You're going to say Maine?
No. What's the safest state in America?
I don't know, Charles. You tell me.
It's Maine. You know what else Maine is? Whitest state in America. Okay.
Charles.
So you can pretend
But what
that
is
there
the
is not.
economic state of Maine?
All of Black America owes a debt to the rest of America because of its outsized problem with crime, right? Because the truth is, most
white
of the victims
people
of that
committed
crime
the crimes
are innocent,
to create the criminal
law-abiding
environment.
Black Americans, right?
Charles,
And
that
the
criminal
only
environment
people
was
that
produced
should be
on black
punished
people
are the
against black
actual
people,
criminals,
and black
right?
people recidivize
And
that
your
crime among themselves.
reparations nonsense narrative, right? Something that happened to people, what is it?
You
Almost
got totally
200 years
away
ago
from the
now, or
Houston
more
shooting.
than 200 years ago.
You got totally
it
away
ended
from the
when
Houston shooting.
500,000 white men in a
You
country
got
that didn't
totally
have
away
that
from
many
the Houston
people in it,
shooting
all
to make a race
died
point,
trying to
where there
end
was no race
slavery,
point involved.
right? But of course, do they need reparations too? Should white
So
people that fought
you
for the
got totally
Union
away
get
from the
reparations?
Houston shooting and the killing of a 10-year-old to make a race point, which race has nothing to do with this shooting at all.
I'm just curious why you're not marching
brought
about it.
in
Why not?
race
Well, that
because
man's
that's
in
what you
jail.
do
I know
when
a
race has
victim's
nothing to do
victim.
with this
But
killing.
my question is, why is Cornell not marching for this poor child?
Because he's charged with
Because
murder.
You
The
can't
man has
make
been
it a
charged
race
with
problem.
murder. He's
Because
been
you
charged with
can't
murder.
make money off it, Cornell.
He's been charged with
That's
murder.
It. That's it.
He's been charged with
and you
murder.
started by saying, why wasn't he charged right away? And I
He
said,
should have
hey,
been charged sooner. He should have been charged.
From the bottom of my heart, if you leave this damn field, son, within 3 years, I'm gonna have to come see you. Either in the grave or no, that's where you're headed. Because you don't want no this. I'm telling you now, son, if you walk out from this field for 3 years, I'm gonna see you somewhere else. And I don't want to do it. I told you that before. And I'm telling you again, it's your choice. Or you can stick out and be a man about what you do, or you can be a coward and put this on you. And I understand you ain't never been a part of a team. I'm rooting for you. Look at me, man. I'm rooting for you. Pray for you every night. Out of all these I pray for you. Because I don't want to see you out there, boy. You got so much in you. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. If you ain't never thought a man love you, I love you. And I ain't just talking about for this football team.
In this round, here's Charles Big Angry Adams.
So that was a high school football coach having a conversation with one of his athletes who apparently was considering quitting the team. He was out on the field and not dressed out, not in practice clothes. And he had some pretty strident words for that young teenage man about what would happen to his life if he quit the team. Right. And now, once again, we have racial homogeneity. We have a black coach talking to a black team. And I think that personally, if it was a white coach talking to a black player, this would be perceived completely differently, which I think is wrong, right? Because clearly there was some concern in his voice. But even here, I don't think it's a fair assessment, right? I don't think it's fair to tell a young black teenager that if he doesn't play football, that he's going to end up in jail or in a cemetery. I do think that sports provide incredible structure for students of all races, and that students that play sports, high school students that play sports or involved in other demanding, grueling, structured extracurricular activities. Because some people, especially in these bigger high schools, don't have the optionality to play sports. You know, it's a difficult thing to do, right? In these absurdist 2,000, 3,000 sized student population high schools, which I don't think it should exist. I don't think high schools should have more than 300 or 400 kids in them, and we should have small high schools where everyone that wants to participate in things can. You know, but I do think the structure is important. I do think it keeps a lot of kids out of a variety of trouble. And I do, but I also believe that if this, like I said, I used to teach a class. I used to go to kids and teach them how to deal with law enforcement, right, during a traffic stop. And my only concern with that was telling kids what to do to, one, protect their constitutional rights politely, and to emerge safely from that traffic stop without any loss of their life, right? But I had some African American women, mainly, suggest that I was racist because I could talk to kids of all races, right? But because I was telling black teenagers, hey, don't object, do what they say, be polite, do not give them any permissions, but always be very careful on how you move and what you say and this and that, because I just wanted them to emerge from the encounter safely. Right. And I do think that in this situation, I'm curious if you think the same. If we had a white football coach telling a black kid, either you're going to play football or you'll be dead or in prison, I think it would be perceived completely differently.
Charles, I am never shocked nor amazed how you could turn such a beautiful humanitarian moment and sacrifice of a coach trying
I'm
to
curious
save
what you would think if it was a white coach saying it.
Athlete into a race issue. This case and this story
that's the show. I don't know if you noticed.
Do about race. This coach, I don't know your name, dear brother, but you are a hero to our community. For you spoke the raw, unadulterated truth to that young man. People who don't understand the strident language or the very harsh language or tone that you use or words you chose to use, they don't understand the nature of the environment that you're trying to coach that young man in. And they don't understand what's happening in that young man's community, what's surrounding him. And I'm sure they don't know the whole backstory surrounding that particular young man. But I've seen so many young athletes like that young man, tremendous, talented young men. But for some reason, they don't like structure. They don't like being held accountable. They don't like discipline. So they leave the team. And in less than a year, you hear about them being gunned down in some drive-by, being involved in some robbery, some auto theft, some criminal act, or being at some party and a bunch of kids showed up and somebody got shot and killed at a house party. Or you hear about them going to jail. This is nothing new. This brother said to that young man, if nobody believe in you, I believe in you. If no man has ever told you he loves you, man, I love you. I'm rooting for you. I pray for you every night. Those are the kind of men that America needs back in athletics. And if we had a white man talking like that to a young black man, saying to him, don't quit this team, don't give up on this team, because I'll have to see you in 1 year in jail or dead somewhere. I love you, young man. I'm rooting for you, young man. If nobody believes in you, I believe you. If we had a white man talking like that to a black athlete, he would be celebrated by black people. Because
I don't think so, Quanell. I think you would be calling him a racist. And I think it's pretty awful to assume that a black teen would be in jail or dead if he didn't play sports. I mean, the truth is, you'd be calling the guy a racist. I mean, that's
no, I would not.
Truth.
No, I would not. I coach football. I coach youth football. And as a former coach of youth football, I know of at least 9 young men that I coached or coached against that died or went to jail before they went to the 9th grade. We've had those similar conversations when I was coaching my son with teammates and other athletes to stay off the streets and stay out of trouble.
You'll agree.
And you look and see what they are.
We've seen basketball and football players about to go into their collegiate careers. Recently, we've had a rash of it in the last 3 years, where kids played football or basketball all through high school, got to college and got murdered, or in the basketball sense, committed murder.
2 Utah players out of Dallas.
So So all kind of a horrible stuff, right? So it seems like the sports, aren't, I think they do. And I agree holistically. I think kids of all races benefit from regimented, structured extracurricular activities. I don't care if it's chess or football or anything, right? But if you're saying that the white coach would be celebrated for telling the
He would
black
be.
kid, "Hey, you're
He
going to
would
go,"
be.
I don't believe it, but okay, I'm going to go. Okay, but if you're saying that, what the hell is going on in Black America where that's the options, right? And what is it? Jail or the cemetery or football? That shouldn't be the binary. That's
But
terrifying.
based on that conversation,
There's a
if you listen-
problem, right?
But if you listen to that conversation with that young man, that coach knows a little bit more than we know right now about that particular young man and his home life and his environment. And one of the major questions I would ask is, where's that young man's father? Is that young man's father actively involved in his life? I would raise that question. And that's what he needed, Charles. You'd be shocked how many college football players go to college and when they get on scholarship, Charles. And when they get there, because they're not used to dealing with men correcting them, holding them accountable, holding them to discipline standards that are universal across the board, they quit and go home.
That's it for the Face-Off on Fox Soul. We'll catch you next time.
If you go to the State House in Austin, Quanell, you go to Austin, all kind of security protecting politicians. You go to the Capitol, they're safe. You go to the courthouse here in Houston, the courthouse, let's say the criminal courthouse, filled with a lot of scum of the earth, both lawyers and criminals, right? Oh my goodness, they're safe. We got metal detectors, police, guards, we got them everywhere. Everybody's safe. And this is the president's response. His response when he's saying, well, why don't we garrison National Guard and put one at every school with a rifle? Well, there's a bunch of schools. Well, yeah, there's a bunch of schools. And in those bunch of schools, there's a bunch of kids. And maybe if we as a country said, let's spend the money because they're crazy. Because I know I saw already 40% of the shooters, the school shooters in the last 4 years have been trans. I don't care who they are. I don't care if they're MAGA. I don't care if they're Rodeo Donald Rumsfeld. I don't care if they're trans, liberal, conservative, because they're all crazy and they're all there to kill kids. And you know what would stop it? Spending the damn money to make schools safer, physically safer, not telling teachers, oh, well, you need to carry a gun and protect your damn self. Right? Their job is to teach.
Charles,
It's disgusting. Put more police in schools. Build better schools.
A teacher job is to teach, but a teacher job also is to protect his or her own life and the life of their students. I think the safest way to do it without wrestling and arguing about money, which the money is absolutely there, but the way you get out of the argument about financially financing this, you get away from that by saying this: teachers who are qualified to carry a firearm, who meet the qualifications, they can carry. And what I would like is that they put it out that this school got 35 teachers, this school got 15 or 20 teachers who carry concealed weapons. Then that way, those creeps, those sick-minded, sick individuals who like to target soft targets will realize that our children's schools are no longer a soft target, and there's a high risk that you will be met with gunfire if you come to the school with a gun, because teachers are packing a strap too. That's the easiest way to do it, because some teachers already have concealed handgun license. You have some teachers that are former police officers. You have some teachers that are hand licensed concealed gun instructors. So yes, let's let those teachers who are qualified carry weapons and send a message to those creeps that you come here, you're going to die. And all it takes is one sick individual going to a school and he's gunned down by a teacher, or 2 or 3 teachers gun him down at the front door. That will send the message to all those damn cowards: leave our kids alone in schools, because at these schools, they are protected and the teachers are strapped. Secondly, Charles, this other part you were talking about, and they was just discussing here on the episode of CNN and Fox News in particular, that Trump is sending the federal guards now into Chicago. The feds are on the way to Chicago. They're going to clean Chicago up, is what he's saying.
Awesome.
It is true that DC has had a tremendous lowering of the crime rate, in particular murders, robberies, assaults, etc. So it is being effective. Many may disagree with the methodology of how it's being implemented, how it's being used, but it is being effective. This is going to take place also in Chicago and other major cities across this country. We do have a criminal problem, but I would really wish that we take that same energy in developing and building programs, economic opportunities for our children, parks, places for the children to go and enjoy themselves. Charles, do you know in some of these neighborhoods, man, they don't even have a community park for these children to go to?
Well, they have parks. They're filled with homeless, drug-addled monster criminals.
If you go to some of these parks, you got drug dealers, prostitutions, homeless people. So the children are like under siege when it comes to going out in their own neighborhoods to enjoy those festivities and those environments that were set up for them to enjoy themselves. We really got to attack those same issues, Charles, to be honest with you. But I want to see schools, man. I'm a big supporter of school vouchers, because when you look at some of these schools, Charles, you got 40, 45 kids with one teacher in a classroom. How in God's name is that teacher going to give those children a proper education and proper instruction when she or he are by themselves with 45 students, Charles? It's crazy. You brought up earlier in the segment where you said these schools have 2,000 or 3,000 students. You're wrong, Charles. Look at the Woodlands High School in the Houston area. They got over 6,000 students, and the school was built for 3,000. Look at Grand Oaks. They got over 6,000 students. Duncanville and Dallas got over 6,000 students, and these schools were built for 3,000, 3,500 kids. Charles, it's sad, but we have to address what is happening in our public school system also, because our kids are not safe at schools too. We need some serious safety measures taking place with schools. We see these same videos almost daily of kids fighting and kids being assaulted, kids being jumped, kids being bullied, teachers being assaulted, teachers being beat up on video in classrooms. So we have an issue with crime all over the place. But I want to see effective measures taken that are long-term. What happens now when National Guard leave? They're in DC, and they leave next week, or they leave the week after next. What happens, Charles? We need long-term solutions, not quick fixes.
Well, no, I think we need both quick fixes and long-term solutions. You think any of the people that weren't murdered, because, DC has a lot of murder, right? In the last, 2 decades, they've been way up there near the top, right? And there have been no murders since Trump went in, which is historically unprecedented, right?
But it's a quick fix. I think the
media would convince all the people that are still alive today because of Trump's actions to still complain about Trump's actions. And I don't want to lose my point, because I was absolutely disgusted by his comments about schools and construction and cost and like you talk about, some teachers were cops. That's an incredible anomaly. And guns are not a magic wand. Guns are incredibly dangerous. You mentioned all the videos of teachers being assaulted by students, right? So what do we want when a student slaps a teacher pulls out and shoots them, or more frightening,
excuse me, let me tell you what. Let me tell you how it's a gun,
and then their gun is taken away by an assaulted student.
Let me tell you right now, my grandmother made it clear. She made it clear to me and my brothers and my cousins.
Your grandmother's position?
You ever put your hands on me? You ever put your hands on
over and over again?
I'm gonna send you to your maker. If you put your hands on grandmama, you're gonna meet Jesus. If you got a child,
but if a white teacher was being beat up by a black student and the white teacher shot him,
if you got a child in school,
advocating to burn the damn school down.
I don't give a damn what color the teacher is or he is. If your child is in school slapping a teacher, your child deserves to get shot in the ass. Ain't no way in the world. Because I'm gonna tell you something, Charles.
What else lying to y'all?
You beating up somebody's mother. You beating up somebody's grandmother. You put your hands on somebody's wife. And I'm gonna tell you something. A lot of these young men wouldn't put their hands on these teachers if they knew she had a gun. These are cowards that slap teachers, punch teachers. But if she had a gun, they wouldn't do it.
Not magic wands. Right, when I became a policeman, I was incredibly well trained with a firearm. Right, and that's what's important here is having people that instead of putting more responsibilities on school teachers, right, instead using the resources to put people that are trained to serve and protect, right? And yes, we have a lot of schools in this country, but we also have a lot of National Guardsmen and women, right, who could be armed with the appropriate weapon, be trained appropriately, and could provide make it a much harder target. Because of course that's why all these monsters.
My work is easy because I use ClickUp. Here's how I keep track of all my tasks. I start by brain dumping everything I need to get done in a list view. Next, I set a priority and a due date to keep things on track. I create custom statuses to organize my progress exactly how I want it. I like to add the action items field so AI can show me the next steps. I add my teammates as watchers so they're in the loop. ClickUp makes work easy, from personal projects to running a multi-billion-dollar company. Click the link below to create your workspace for free.
It's time for today's face-off on Fox Soul. Challengers Quan LX and Big Angry Adams ready to go blow by blow on those hot topics. Face-off on Fox Soul starts right now.
And then I didn't do any for 2 days, and they said there must be something wrong with him. Biden wouldn't do them for months. You wouldn't see him. And nobody ever said there was ever anything wrong with him, and we know he wasn't in the greatest of shape. No, I heard that. I get reports. Now, you knew I did an interview that lasted for about an hour and a half with somebody, and everybody saw that was on one of your competitors. No, I was very active over the weekend. They also knew I went out to visit some people at the club that I own pretty nearby on the Potomac River. And no, I've been very active actually over the week. Well, it's fake news. You know, it's so fake. That's why the media has so little credibility. I knew they were saying, like, is he okay? How's he feeling? What's wrong? I said, I just left. And it's also sort of a longer weekend, you know, it's Labor Day weekend. So I would say a lot of people know I was very active this Labor Day.
We have a huge problem with school shootings. You've said that you're open to sending the National Guard pretty much anywhere. Would you ever consider sending an armed National Guardsman to every school?
Well, we have a big problem with school shooting, but we also have thousands and thousands of schools that run perfectly. You know, they talk about you can do things construction-wise, and that's really I think nobody knows more about construction than me. You can build the construction doors. You can build what they call safety doors, where they lock on the outside, the inside, and every place else. Well, but if one of these lunatics happens to get through, then the police can't get in. Then they're looking for keys all over the place, and it takes them a lot of disadvantages to doing, you know, spending billions and billions of dollars and actually making it safer in some way for some of these lunatics dealing with. But I don't think so. I've thrown out the concept. We have great teachers that love our children. The parents love the children. Teachers love the children too. And if you took a small percentage of those teachers that were in the military, that were distinguished in the military, that were in the National Guard, et cetera, and you let them carry, that's something that a lot of people like. I sort of liked it. Have to be studied, but they're trained. They know about weapons. You can't do it with every teacher.
This round, here's Charles Big Angry Adams.
All right, Quanell, that was Donald Trump earlier this afternoon, and two very different topics in one long clip that Matt has put up for us to discuss. I actually would rather discuss the latter topic and then return to the former. The former being him addressing, obviously, the White House disclosed that he has chronic venous insufficiency in July, which is a pretty common condition for people of his age. And then he took a step back from a lot of media engagement, and it seemed like Twitter or X or whatever it is now was celebrating the thought that maybe he's sick and dying. I saw someone suggest that Putin had poisoned him, that there was some bruised hands, and and all kind of loud punditry voices seeming to relish the thought that, hey, maybe there's something wrong with him. And I think this press conference about the Space Force that led to this question and answer was really him coming out and saying, hey, yeah, there's nothing wrong with me, which he very clearly did. And I think it's kind of repugnant. I don't care what party, I don't care, Republican, Democrat, whatever. I think what we see is like when it was very clear that Biden's mental acuity was gone, you had all these Republicans celebrating his senility. Now, there was appropriate people saying, hey, y'all been lying to us for a long time, as Trump just mentioned. That was appropriate. But celebrating it is disgusting, right? And just like people celebrating the apparently wrong thought that he was on the edge of death, that's equally disgusting. And I think we could all agree that, and I don't think it'll change because social media is largely a cesspool of disgusting people saying ugly things anonymously. And I'm always shocked when people do it brazenly using their own persona, because we got a lot of awful people. But the more important topic were his comments on school shootings. I couldn't disagree with the president more, right? First of all, if you're going to, there's been no murders since he garrisoned a bunch of National Guardsmen and officers to create more safety. I saw a tweet where somebody was complaining about all the families with scooters and all the fun being had in DC around all the guardsmen. Well, because it's safe, right? It's been a great thing. The mayor of DC has come out and said it's a great thing. It's been a great thing. So all the naysayers really should shut up because DC was underwater with crime. But then for the president to say, well, yeah, I mean, we could do that to keep schools safe, but there's so many schools. And then when he was asked, hey, let's there's things you can do construction wise, but if you do it, it might keep people out. It seemed like he was referring to Uvalde and the officers allegedly locked out. The truth of Uvalde is the cowardly police were hanging outside an unlocked door that they were assumed was locked to serve their purposes of allowing them to cower until some real men, it was the Border Patrol that showed up and then went in there and killed the bad guy after students and teachers bled to death from the delay in law enforcement. I don't like that. I didn't like his answer about construction. I don't have kids in school anymore, but there's nothing I would rather spend our tax dollars on than making schools more impenetrable. If you go to the State House in Austin, Quanell, you go to Austin, all kind of security protecting politicians. You go to the Capitol, they're safe. You go to the courthouse here in Houston, the courthouse, let's say the criminal courthouse, filled with a lot of scum of the earth, both lawyers and criminals, right? Oh my goodness, they're safe. We got metal detectors, police, guards, we got them everywhere. Everybody's safe. And this is the president's response. His response when he's saying, well, why don't we garrison National Guardmen, put one at every school with a rifle? Well, there's a bunch of schools. Well, yeah, there's a bunch of schools. And in those bunch of schools, there's a bunch of kids. And maybe if we as a country said, let's spend the money, because they're crazy. Because I know I saw already 40% of the shooters in the last school shooters in the last 4 years have been trans. I don't care who they are. I don't care if they're MAGA. I don't care if they're Rodeo Donald Rumsfeld. I don't care if they're trans, liberal, conservative, because they're all crazy and they're all there to kill kids. And you know what would stop it? Spending the damn money to make schools safer, physically safer, not telling teachers, oh, well, you need to carry a gun and protect your damn self. Right? Their job is to teach.
Charles,
It's disgusting. Put more police in schools. Build better schools.
A teacher's job is to teach, but a teacher's job also is to protect his or her own life and the life of their students. I think the safest way to do it without wrestling and arguing about money, which the money is absolutely there, but the way you get out of the argument about financially financing this, you get away from that by saying this: teachers who are qualified to carry a firearm, who meet the qualifications, they can carry. And what I would like is that they put it out that this school got 35 teachers, this school got 15 or 20 teachers who carry concealed weapons. Then that way, those creeps, those sick-minded, sick individuals who like to target soft targets will realize that our children's schools
are no longer a soft target, and there's a high risk that you will be met with gunfire if you come to the school with a gun, because teachers are packing a strap too. That's the easiest way to do it, because some teachers already have concealed handgun license. You have some teachers that are former police officers. You have some teachers that are hand licensed concealed gun instructors. So yes, let's let those teachers who are qualified carry weapons and send a message to those creeps that you come here, you're going to die. And all it takes is one sick individual going to a school and he's gunned down by a teacher, or 2 or 3 teachers gun him down at the front door. That will send the message to all those damn cowards. Leave our kids alone in schools, because at these schools, they are protected and the teachers are strapped. Secondly, Charles, this other part you were talking about, and they was just discussing here on the episode of CNN and Fox News in particular, that Trump is sending the federal guards now into Chicago. The feds are on the way to Chicago. They're going to clean Chicago up, is what he's saying.
Awesome.
It is true that DC has had a tremendous lowering of the crime rate, in particular murders, robberies, assaults, etc. So it is being effective. Many may disagree with the methodology of how it's being implemented, how it's being used, but it is being effective. This is going to take place also in Chicago and other major cities across this country. We do have a criminal problem, but I would really wish that we take that same energy in developing and building programs, economic opportunities for our children, parks, places for the children to go and enjoy themselves. Charles, do you know in some of these neighborhoods, man, they don't even have a community park for these children to go to.
Well, they have parks. They're filled with homeless, drug-addled monster criminals.
If you go to some of these parks, you got drug dealers, prostitutions, homeless people. So the children are like under siege when it comes to going out in their own neighborhoods to enjoy those festivities and those environments that were set up for them to enjoy themselves. We really got to attack those same issues, Charles, to be honest with you. But I want to see schools, man. I'm a big supporter of school vouchers, because when you look at some of these schools, Charles, you got 40, 45 kids with one teacher in the classroom. How in God's name is that teacher going to give those children a proper education and proper instruction when she or he are by themselves with 45 students, Charles? It's crazy. You brought up earlier in the segment where you said these schools have 2,000 or 3,000 students. You're wrong, Charles. Look at the Woodlands High School in the Houston area. They got over 6,000 students, and the school was built for 3,000. Look at Grand Oaks. They got over 6,000 students. Duncanville and Dallas got over 6,000 students, and these schools were built for 3,000, 3,500 kids. Charles, it's sad, but we have to address what is happening in our public school system also, because our kids are not safe at schools too. We need some serious safety measures taking place with schools. We see these same videos almost daily of kids fighting and kids being assaulted, kids being jumped, kids being bullied, teachers being assaulted, teachers being beat up on video in classrooms. So we have an issue with crime all over the place. But I want to see effective measures taken that are long-term. What happens now when the National Guard leave? They're in DC, and they leave next week, or they leave the week after next. What happens, Charles? We need long-term solutions, not quick fixes.
No, I think we need both quick fixes and long-term solutions. You think any of the people that weren't murdered, because DC has a lot of murder, right? In the last 2 decades, they've been way up there near the top, right? And there have been no murders since Trump went in, which is historically unprecedented, right?
But it's a quick fix. I think the
media would convince all the people that are still alive today because of Trump's actions to still complain about Trump's actions. And I don't want to lose my point, because I was absolutely disgusted by his comments about schools and construction and cost and like you talk about, some teachers were cops. That's an incredible anomaly. And guns are not a magic wand. Guns are incredibly dangerous. You mentioned all the videos of teachers being assaulted by students, right? So what do we want when a student slaps a teacher pulls out and shoots them, or more frightening, the teacher
excuse
has
me.
a gun.
Let me tell you
has a gun.
Let me tell you how it's
a gun, and that their gun is taken away by an assaulted student.
Let me tell you right now, my grandmother made it clear. She made it clear to me and my brothers and my cousins.
Your grandmother's position?
You ever put your hands on me? You ever put your hands on
over
me?
and over again.
I'm gonna send you to your maker. If you put your hands on grandmama, you're gonna meet Jesus. If you got a child,
but if a white teacher was getting beat up by a black student and the white teacher shot him, you'd be marching and advocating to burn the damn school down. You know,
I don't give a damn what color the teacher is or he is. If your child is in school slapping a teacher, your child deserves to get shot in the ass. Ain't no way in the world. Because I'm gonna tell you something, Charles.
What else lying to y'all?
You beating up somebody's mother. You beating up somebody's grandmother. You put your hands on somebody's wife. And I'm gonna tell you something. A lot of these young men wouldn't put their hands on these teachers if they knew she had a gun. These are cowards that slap teachers, punch teachers. But if she had a gun, they wouldn't do it.
Not magic wands, right? When I became a policeman,
it'll
I was
people being beat up.
incredibly well trained with a firearm, right? And that's what's important here is having people that instead of putting more responsibilities on school teachers, right? Instead, using the resources to put people that are trained to serve and protect, right? And yes, we have a lot of schools in this country, but we also have a lot of National Guardsmen and women, right? Who could be armed with the appropriate weapon, be trained appropriately, and could provide make it a much harder target. Because of course that's why all these monsters, all these monsters focus on schools, because they see them as soft targets where they can kill a lot of people and have nothing happen to them, right?
But not if teachers are armed.
Okay, here's the thing. Not if we put armed security that is properly trained to keep people safe. Not if we spend
how many
money
security? One, two, or three? Some of these campuses already have two security guards.
Necessary. I don't care.
Some of them already have two security guards, two officers in these campuses.
I don't.
But if you got 9, 15, 20, 25 teachers that are armed, that's a whole different ball game, Charles. And guess what? There's no extra expense associated with it.
Okay, I get that you say there's no extra expenses associated with it. I disagree, right? These teachers would have to be trained, right? And then it would be the responsibility. There'd be a bunch of liability coverage. There'd be all these different things, right? And it would just be just as well and good to say, hey, we're going to build these schools. We spend, how can we, like when the stadium, that little Q played his last playoff game in. Right, last year I went out to watch.
80 million.
That felt 80 million on that stadium, on a football stadium. You know, you talk about these schools that are 6,000, 5,000 students. Every high school should be capped at 500 students. They don't need an auditorium and an $80 million stadium. You know, that's the thing. Like where I raised my kids in Friendswood, and I'll be the first to admit that after I got sick of that school district, I put my kids in private school, and I think it was great for them, and that's how they turned out so very, very successful. But in a private school, like you said, vouchers, and I disagree with the concept of vouchers. I think we need good public schools, but in a private school, kids can just participate in things, right? In a 6,000 kid school with one quarterback that starts, right? There is 5,999 kids that don't ever get the chance to even dream of doing that.
I don't think it's that position.
And maybe in Duncanville, great teams, great football. But what's more important than great football? Great student outcomes. It would be easier to protect a school with only 500 kids in it. More kids would participate. You could build it stronger. And then let's also we want to talk about schools. Right now in America, we're teaching kids in schools to, hate America and all about gender and a bunch of craziness. Where really what we should be teaching kids in schools is vocation, is foreign languages, is how to pay your taxes, is how to become a successful American, just like the Chinese are teaching their kids how to be successful Chinese.
Well, let's not ignore the elephant in the room about Trump's comments today.
Okay.
Donald Trump's comments this week at the White House. Let's not ignore something else that came out. We've heard now that China is going to host. China's hosting Iran, Russia, North Korea, and India. And China is hosting them not at an economic meeting,
not at a global international trade meeting, not on a food or human development meeting. They're hosting for a military parade. When you have China bringing a quote unquote, as the government says, axis of evil together in China to celebrate with them at a military parade, they're speaking to the Trump administration. They're speaking to the American people. And I warned you, Charles, I warned you. I told you over a year ago that the remaining communist powers, that are legitimate powers, would unite against America. On this show, I warned you that. I told you North Korea is a communist government, Russia a communist government, China a communist government. India has something similar with a theocracy over there, named democracy. But Charles, that's a fake democracy. You and I both know it. Let me tell you something, brother. They are now hooking up.
They just don't let the Islamists participate for good reason.
They're hooking up and they're joining forces against America. And I'm gonna tell you something. I believe that they're potentially uniting for war against America. I believe they're planning a secret war against America.
You know, I do think long term, right? I do think that's why we have all these. You know, we've decided in the West that in academia, starting in high school, but obviously at the university level, we are going to teach students how awful the West is, right? You know, in England, now you get arrested for flying an English flag. Well, they can fly all the Palestinian flags, all the Islamists, all the Hamas flags, the jihadi flags, all you want. But if you fly an English flag, you're going to get arrested. It's just crazy, right? But it's this self-loathing that's being perpetuated by academia and teaching Americans to hate America, that America's bad. I mean, you spew how evil America is all the time. Right? Well, the truth is that everyone comes here of every color and every race and ethnicity. They risk their lives to come here because you have the most freedom and the most opportunity right here in America. I don't care if you're black, white, brown, Asian, whatever, right? I know you act different and you talk about all the oppression, but that's just you lying for a living. But the truth is that America is the greatest. And we need to get back to teaching our students, right, in public schools, that America is the greatest. And when we're doing that, we need to keep those kids safe and participated and stop worrying about talking about what genitalia people want to lick and instead talk about, hey, how do you fix a car? How do you do well in medical school or law school? The fundamental, the platform, the foundation that you build the superstructure of your life on. And we're just not doing that crap in America because we've bent the knee to all the radicalism.
It is
being a
truly
radical. It's wrong.
oxymoronic. It is truly oxymoronic that a white man to living.
Why do you want kids out of the house better lives? Why do you want safer schools? Why do you want
the entire planet
you don't know anything about my ancestors. And frankly, we don't know anything about yours. And if yours reflect your life, well, man, just say we're not ours.
And its natural resources.
That's it for the Face-Off on Fox Soul. We'll catch you next time.
Yo, what's up, guys? So I'm detailing my daughter's new car right now, and I have a little story time for y'all. If you're in need of some cheaper insurance, keep watching because you're going to want to see this video. So my daughter's going to school soon, and when I finally found this car and picked it up, it sat in her driveway for weeks because we couldn't find insurance for under $150 just because it's her first car. So when she sent me a quote she found, I was floored. Of course, I had to make sure it was legit, so I asked her, where did you find this? Well, she told me she was scrolling through Facebook last week, and she stumbled upon a company called Auto. Apparently, all she had to do was fill out a quick quiz, and she was accepted for a $59 a month plan. She told me it's full coverage, so I did my research. I found out that 25 million people have used Auto already, and somehow I didn't even know about it. So I decided to check it out. I filled out the quiz, and I'm not gonna lie, I was actually pre-approved for a $38 a month plan for full coverage. So I'm gonna keep this site handy. Can you guys check this out and tell me if this works? Because it seems too good to be true. If you guys wanna see how much you can save, I put the link down below.
For unbeatable value and portable power, choose Predator generators. From traditional models to super quiet inverters. With remote start, multi-fuel options, and more, we've got the power you need. Whether it's backup for home, power on the job site, or energy for your next outdoor adventure. Power through anything with Predator. Available now, only at Harbor Freight.
It's time for today's face-off on Fox Soul. Challengers Quan LX and Big Angry Adams ready to go blow by blow on those hot topics. Face-off on Fox Soul starts right now.
Eric and Lyle Menendez are rethinking their strategy for release after both were denied parole last week. Two separate parole panels ruled that they should stay behind bars, citing disciplinary violations and questions about their behavior. Their attorney, Mark Garagos, he joins me now live. Thank you so much for being with me. You joined me live, and my colleague Phil Schuman exclusively Friday night after this. We got your reaction. We want to talk to you now about next steps moving forward. Let me just start with the fact that they were both denied, and ultimately the parole members said they characterized them as having antisocial personality traits. You disagree with that?
Yeah, well, you know, as I said, I think I said to you, maybe somebody else, when you talk about personality traits, everybody since Mother Teresa has died has got antisocial personality traits of some kind. So that isn't really the way I would characterize what the denials were. The denial of Eric was, I thought, markedly different than what happened with Lyle. With Eric, that commissioner, Mr. Barton, came out of the gate and appeared to have his mind made up, focused on the crime itself. And to the extent that Eric, over the last 12 years, has shown a remarkable ability to do really good things with no hope for over a decade, was completely ignored. And the purported cell phone violations bore absolutely no connection to criminality. So that was perplexing. Then when you move over to Lyle, which was the next day, last Friday, that Commissioner Garland later characterized in her hearing with Lyle, the worst day of her professional career. Well, what was she referring to? While they were denying both Eric and Lyle their freedom over cell phone violations, which are rules internal to the prison itself had to admit, because we confronted them after at first they blamed the victims, they admitted they erroneously violated the rules and released the audio.
In this round, here's Charles Big Angry Adams.
Well, that was some wonderful. I mean, I always like it when I listen to a fellow lawyer give out a steaming pile of BS in a very believable, straightforward manner, where it's talking about he seemed offended that the parole board was focused on the crime itself, right? Like taking a shotgun and blowing your mother's face off, right? This is exactly what you want a parole board to do, is to look at the horrifying crime as to why the person's in prison and sentenced to life in prison, and see if there's someone, you know, when Mark Garagos tried to say, oh, well, everybody has antisocial personality disorders since Mother Teresa died. Well, that was just Garagos lying through his slimy teeth, right? It's disgusting the way some people in my profession have a capacity to lie without any hesitation. No, not everyone has personality disorders, and most certainly not the type of personality disorders that lead you to butcher your parents. Now, there is this narrative from the Menendez brothers, right, that they used during the trial that did not emerge before, that they were being molested by their dad, and that's what led them to commit these horrible crimes. The problem that most of us think is, one, Eric was seeing a psychologist, and it was actually the psychologist who he admitted the crime to who told the police and led to the prosecution. And there was no mention, right? No mention of being sexually molested by his father. And in fact, to the contrary, after they committed these grievous murders, which were alleged to, there is some allegation that they committed these murders and then destroyed a new will that the parents had done that reflected the fact that they were disappointed with their son's conduct, right? And took all the money they could get their hands on and sports cars. One of them allegedly bought a sports bar restaurant in Princeton, near Princeton, where they went to school in New Jersey. And we're just living this fast and fabulous, getting floor seats to the Lakers. We're living this big time life, which of course brought some attention to them because, well, it was evil drug dealers that were suggested to have killed their parents. But the truth is that these two scumbag monsters killed their parents, and in a horrifying manner, especially with the mother. And then, at a later date, when they were caught red-handed and they realized, and hopefully it was them, not their lawyers, because lawyers aren't supposed to come up with stories. And obviously Garagos wasn't the lawyer then. They're not supposed to say, hey, we should argue this, right? Because that would be suborning perjury. So I presume that the Menendez brothers were the ones that came up with the theory that daddy was touching us, right? And it sounds like instead, very good parents who spent a whole lot of money providing a tremendous platform for those two young men, they're not young anymore, but at the time, to have tremendous success in life. And instead, they chose to be a couple of party boys. And when it looked like the party was running out of steam, they butchered their parents in the worst possible way. And, for me, from my perspective, I think most murders are awful. There are some people that bring a killing on themselves, like self-defense or other things. But when you have two people that have been given every advantage in life, every advantage, grew up rich, grew up, private schools, private lessons, private colleges, just the best of everything. And then they do something horrible. It's absolutely inexcusable. And it's the only reason those two preppy kids caught the nation's attention. And it's the only reason we're talking about it now. Let them rot in prison.
But all of that means absolutely nothing if it is true that father repeatedly raped his sons. If it is true that the young man in the very popular boy male group that his father managed in that music group, who has passed several lie detectors in support of the Menendez brothers, that their father repeatedly raped him also. If it is true that the mother was aware of this and the mother told the boys to keep it quiet, and the mothers helped the father groom the boys to accept the sexual abuse of their father, if that is true, then the mother and the father both deserve the bullet. Because I am a father and I have raised children. And any father, if you rape your child, the punishment should be death, not a prison cell. If you a mother that covered up the sexual abuse and exploitation of your sons or daughters to keep a man, God damn it, you deserve death and not a prison also. Put them both in the graveyard. But if they're both lying about it, then they should rot in prison. But if it is true and evidence is being uncovered continuously that suggests that it was true, and there's more evidence about a journal that was discovered that talked about the boys confessing in the journal of their father's sexual abuse of them when they were young boys in that journal. If that is true, I don't give nothing about how sweet of a life they had being raised, how much privilege they were grown up with. That does not equal the sexual trauma and the butchering of the innocence of two young boys by the very person that is supposed to protect them at all costs, their father and their mother. So all that you're talking about don't mean a damn thing if that is true that they raped those boys.
Well, I actually think it does, right? Because you look at direct and circumstantial evidence, right? And if you are willing to admit a murder to a psychologist, which is ultimately was the linchpin in their prosecution, which Eric did, why would you hold back the relevant information as to why you committed the murder? Because Eric, they weren't children at the time. And if you're opening up about one thing, and also, if that's the why, right? If that's the why didn't any of this evidence emerge earlier? If that's the why, right? Why?
The prosecutors knew about the journal. Prosecutors knew about the journal.
Hold on.
And they hid it.
The prosecutors did not hide evidence. In fact, the prosecutors were very open about this. They were able to present it, and ultimately, ultimately, the jury rejected the arguments. They said, we don't believe this nonsense. We believe that you were just two party boys, which is what they were. And you took all the money and had the big party, and you did it when people would typically be mourning the death of their parents or be explaining that we committed this crime.
From the very popular teenage boy group who passed a polygraph examination twice, admitting that the father did the same exact things to him.
Right. Again, there is no solid evidence that the father molested him or anyone else. And how horrible to demonize, right? This is what getting this jihad, this, we get all slathered up nowadays. It was like the I'm trying to think of the Muslim fella in, I think, Virginia or Maryland that killed his ex-girlfriend classmate, and they did this huge podcast on it, and they got him out of jail. It was Maryland, a corrupt DA, and it turned out he is the murderer, right? It's just all nonsense, right? And the Mendez brothers, even you're trying to build a case to justify, okay, so your father's a molester and you killed him, right? Then why did you go put a shotgun and shoot your mom's face off?
Because they said the mom.
I know there's a story and excuse, but that's just lawyer bullcrap.
Quiet, and the mom taught them to accept it and that it was normal. If they're lying, they should rot their ass in prison.
Okay.
Absolutely should. If they're lying,
well, the jury didn't believe them.
They should have got the death penalty if they're lying. But if they tell the truth,
well, I mean, it's California, they ain't doling that out. But the jury did not believe that they were victims of child molestation. They thought that was just a contrived lie in an effort to obfuscate their culpability.
At how many kids, when they see psychiatrists for being victims of sexual abuse, they don't reveal everything about it. They keep a lot to themselves. Again,
not a kid when he went to the psychologist, admitted to committing a murder and talking about why he committed a murder.
To me, you can't rehabilitate rapists.
MAGA influencer was on Newsnight last week, and we were having a discussion on the show about Trump's attempts to influence parts of American culture, like the Smithsonian, like the Kennedy Center, and the arts, when suddenly the conversation turned to slavery and race. And Jillian argued that everything in the culture has become now about race.
He's not whitewashing slavery. So he's not? He's not. No, okay. he's not. And you cannot tie imperialism and racism and slavery to just one race, which is pretty much what every single exhibit does.
Then what really shocked all of us at the table was that she seemed to try to be minimizing the impact of racism and slavery on American history.
Do you realize that only less than 2% of white Americans owned slaves?
It was a system of white supremacy.
You realize that slavery is thousands of years old? Do you know who was the first race to try to end slavery?
That's an incredibly misleading statistic, because even the Americans who did not own slaves also participated in slavery by benefiting from the economic system of slavery, the political system of slavery, and culturally treating Black people as if they were not human. But Jillian didn't acknowledge any of those things. And that, I think, is really what shocked so many of us.
Unfortunately, I ended up having two conversations at the same time. So the first one has to do with the Smithsonian and the exhibits I was told by the comms team at the White House that the administration had taken umbrage with. So I knew this was going to come up, and I wanted to speak in an educated fashion on what the true issues were. So I reached out to the comms team and I was like, can you just tell me, right, like what's going on? They send me, gosh, I don't know, a 50-page document. And there were numerous exhibits, none of which had anything to do with slavery. So when Julie Rodzinski, who is another woman on the panel, starts to talk about how parts of MAGA are racist and makes a Nazi reference to Trump again by calling him dear leader, I know that none of it has to do with slavery. So I'm like, oh boy, here we go. You know, I'm thinking she's pitching it right over the plate. I'm going to knock it out of the park because none of it has to do with that at all, which is why I very confidently was like, he's not whitewashing slavery. I very confidently take the position that he's not whitewashing slavery because I know that none of the exhibits are actually about.
In this round, here's Charles Big Angry Adams.
So what we have is fitness influencer and reality TV star Jillian Michaels and Abby Phillip, who hosts a roundtable discussion on CNN, and some of our other panel members got into it with Jillian about her take on Trump's efforts to limit which some people would frame the abject white hatred and blame white people for everything and frame everything in the context of racism. Everything, right? In fact, in academia, in elite academia, the best way to ensure that you get published nowadays is to call something that has nothing to do with race racist, right? That's a guaranteed way to get published, right? And we have had this mindset in the last 3 decades of how academia can articulate why America is awful. And that has rolled downstream into a number of areas, including many museums. And in the Smithsonian, it does have an incredible anti-American sentiment. Now, we obviously do have an entire other museum in DC set up to talk about the horrors of slavery. And there are clearly appropriate places to discuss the horrors of slavery in the context and racism in the context of the Smithsonian. But what you've had done is you've had it injected everywhere. And just like Abby Phillip did, right? Now, I think Jillian Michaels was wrong. I think at the apex, I think you had about 8% of Americans owning slaves. And that, yes, you had a culture of Jim Crow and after the fall of the Confederacy, and they were all really, really awful. What Abby Phillip ignored, of course, which much like you ignore, is that 600,000 white Americans died fighting to end slavery, that we had abolitionists at the very beginning of this country in 1776, that this country almost didn't come to existence, but the fact that they had to compromise on slavery issues. There were white Americans that from the beginning of this country who said slavery is a horrible institution, right? And we also pretend, Abby Phillip and a great number of people like to pretend that slavery was somehow exclusively the province of, white people from Europe, when of course that's not at all the truth. And in fact, the only places that legalized slavery, I know you say, oh, it still exists in America, but that's just you lying. The only place that it still exists openly throughout Africa, especially North Africa and South Asia, and China, but China's just a totalitarian, authoritarian communist regime. And that's where you have actual slavery still, right? And none of it is white. And in fact, throughout history, you've had all shades of people engaging in all types of slavery throughout the history of mankind. And in fact, it was the most powerful country that led it into slavery. Well, that was also a violent colonizing country. It was Great Britain, right? And we don't have those kind of discussions in our museums anymore. It's just whitey bad, whitey need to pay reparations, right? So we're telling a whole generation of white kids, and we have been for years, not when we were children, right? When we were children, Quadell, it was just, hey, we're all equal. You need to treat people with respect. Equality is a good thing. That's it. But that's no longer what's being taught at the Smithsonian or at any college campus on this country or just about anywhere when you're talking about it. It is, if you are born white, you are born wrong. You're born with a privilege that subjects you to being discriminated against. And you've got to hear it all the time about how awful you and your ancestors are, when in fact, there's a very good chance that there's an overwhelming chance that your ancestors never had a slave. And there's a pretty good chance that the majority of your ancestors were never racist. But what we do is we look at the worst of the whites, right? But we say, hey, only for the whites. You can't do that to anyone else, because we can't say today, right? You can't say, well, it would probably be better for me to live in what are the safest states in this country? Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Idaho.
Let me say.
Oh wait, the whitest states in this country are the safest. So you could say, oh well, I got to go live around the white people, but that would be, of course, racist, and you wouldn't have any seasoning in your food, right?
Let's focus on Jillian Michaels.
Oh, okay.
Miss Michaels is attempting to whitewash her original.
Absolutely not. She's not even white.
Her original comments were absolutely offensive, and they were wrong. But I say that America has to come to grips with her history. Dr. Carter G. Woodson, the founder of Black History, said that today was built from yesterday and tomorrow is built to determine what we do today. We cannot move forward into the future without acknowledging and being honest about the things of the past.
Well, when hasn't it not been acknowledged in your lifetime, Quanell? When in your lifetime has it not been acknowledged?
The Trump administration is not only going after the Smithsonian, they're also going after what we know to be the African American Museum, and they're attempting to rewrite history and whitewash history. One thing America has never acknowledged.
It's easy to say, it's harder to tell.
Never acknowledged the fact, let me finish, never acknowledged the fact that America paid reparations to slave owners for the loss of their slaves and called it property damage paid reparations. America has not acknowledged the fact that she never gave us what was written as a constitutional protection to us and lied to us about giving us 40 acres and a mule after slavery. That debt was never paid. America has lied to the American people and its own children about the illegal experimentations carried out on Black children in society, in schools, in orphanages, in jails, and in the military against Black people for generations. America has not been honest about the institutions that were financially built.
If America hasn't been honest about it, how do you know about it?
Off the backs of slavery, because some of us who were taught to read other material than what was given to us in school, we had to research this and fact find this to get to the bottom of this.
But now the truth is that America has been, especially white America, has been engaged in this self-flagellation for decades now.
Would you tell Jewish people the same thing you tell Black people?
That's it for the Face-Off on Fox Soul. We'll catch you next time. For today's Face-Off on Fox Soul, challengers Quanell X and Big Angry Adams ready to go blow by blow on those hot topics. Face-Off on Fox Soul starts right now.
Cashless bail. Cashless bail, of course, allows a defendant to be released from jail while they're awaiting trial. That's based on their commitment to appear in court instead of paying a specific cash amount. I know some supporters of cashless bail says it avoids penalizing low-income defendants. But Gabe, what is the president and White House saying about this order and their hopes for what it will do, not just for Washington, but the rest of the country?
Well, you know, Zane Clay, the president and his administration have been railing against cashless bail for quite some time. It's something that Janine Pirro, the U.S. attorney here in D.C., has been talking about a lot in the last couple of days. And this executive order the president just signed aims to eliminate cashless bail here in D.C. by potentially withholding federal funds from this jurisdiction. And also, he ordered his attorney general to look at different jurisdictions across the country and identify those that have cashless bail policies and explore ways to withhold some federal funding. Now, that is something that the administration has done for a variety of issues, trying to explore ways to stop federal funding or to the threat of withholding federal funds in order to for those jurisdictions to agree or to go along with.
In this round, here's Quanell X.
Gentlemen, we now have witnessed that President Donald Trump, early on this week, has signed new executive orders that raises extreme concern for me that in this alleged image that he's trying to paint of a war on crime, being tough on crime, he eliminated cashless bail. Cashless bail was designed and put in place so indigent people would not languish behind bars for simple, basic misdemeanor crimes. I agree that cashless bail should be removed for hardened criminals, violent offenders, but people who are in jail for possession of a burnt piece of marijuana or just drug paraphernalia, having some weed papers in your car or having a vape in your car, something like that. Now you can be arrested in DC and in some other jurisdictions
And you may not be able to ever exit jail because you cannot afford $1,000 bond, a $1,500 bond, a $2,500 bond. So this is punishing poor people for small petty crimes, homeless people who may get arrested for trespassing, who may get arrested for vagrancy, who may get arrested for just being on a sidewalk or being in front of a business too long. Now, when they go to jail, they don't get a PR bond because they cannot afford any level of cash financial assistance to pay for a bond. I have a problem with this, Charles, because this is going to explode the criminal justice system. It's going to already heavy burden overpopulated jail facilities. What's going to happen next? He's weaponizing the criminal justice system against poverty and poor people that will languish in jail for petty, small crimes.
Well, I mean, the American justice system has already been very difficult and biased against poor people for many, many years. When I became the presiding judge for a municipality, which means my jurisdiction was limited to traffic offenses and fine only criminal offenses like public intoxication or disorderly conduct, you would have people that would languish in the jail who were arrested, who did not have the ability to post the bond if they were arrested for their traffic offense or the low level crime, or they had been had been cited in the past, did not pay, and then got a warrant, and were not able to pay the bond to get a court date reinstated. I implemented a policy of always issuing PR bonds in every circumstance because I don't think low level crimes, city level crimes, people need to languish in jail. And I thought that most often the arrest, the ride, the towing of the vehicle typically, and the sitting in jail until court the next morning was far long enough for these types of crimes. And you would see before me, you would see people sit in jail for weeks on end. And I didn't do it just in my courtroom, but for the city as a whole because I was a presiding judge. So I agree with the narrative that you don't want it biased against people, right? But you also have to look at kind of a three-pronged test, right? The likelihood of the return to court. You have to look at the danger to a victim, the danger to the community, and then of course the ability to pay, right? So you have a system where if you have no PR bonds at all, it means that only the wealthy get to go free, and that doesn't make much sense. Now, the federal government doesn't have much of a right, although there is a right to bail, but you'll remember with January 6th, people sat in jail for months and months on end because they were in front of judges who were left-leaning federal jurists who didn't have empathy for these people and just said, "Oh, y'all can sit." And there are lots of claims about the treatment. Now, that's an anomaly because, of course, usually it's poor people of color who are sitting there. And here in Houston, we had a criminal justice system set up for years that people would get a driver's while license suspended, which is a class B. It's a more serious, it's jailable misdemeanor. And they would sit there for months until they took a plea deal, right? They had to take a plea to get out, and that's absolutely wrong. But the pendulum has swung so far, especially you've seen incidents where we had all these left-wing bail organizations that were rushing down to bail everyone out with no concern as to what they did. And we had incidents where they bailed out men on domestic violence who then got out and then killed their spouse, right? I think we need to stop worrying so much about the money, right? Or the ability to pay, and instead look at the potential for harm. You have to assume people are innocent, but you can look at the facts, look at the allegations as a judge, and determine whether or not you think this person is going to pose a significant risk to harm. And it's a case specific scenario that'll be very burdensome, but I think it's important because right now in DC, one, they're not arresting people for weed. They're not arresting people for stealing. They're not arresting people for assaulting people. They're not arresting people for anything. It's the wild, wild east out there, and people are in real danger. And when you see the elected officials and heavy hitters that being carjacked and robbed and assaulted, when it's happening to those rare people, it's happening to everyday people every damn day. And that's really who suffers the most in this pendulum's way too far on the left side now, where you just let everybody go and there's no consequences for anybody. It's the result is, and what no one wants to talk about, is who suffers the worst. poor
But
people of color.
But I agree
Period.
with you, Charles, in what you're saying. It has swung too far to the left. We can all agree to that. But what he has instructed federal authorities to do in D.C. is to take anyone that they arrest and put them in federal custody. So
Well,
now,
there
if you
are.
arrest,
It's the District of Columbia. There's no state
but
jail.
when you take these people, Charles, homeless people, take a single mother, Charles, who may have gotten a simple misdemeanor traffic violation, or she may have got a
People
trespass.
aren't going to
notice.
jail in D.C. for speeding or not signaling
But
a
Charles,
turn.
what I'm saying is, if you're going to make cashless bail, you're going to trap a lot of poor people in that net who should not be in jail.
Well, I
They're
agree.
only there
I
because they're
agree.
economically indigent. And also, Trump is a billionaire. He has no empathy or sympathy for poor people who cannot afford to make bond, because he's someone who could make bond when he was charged with multiple felonies in multiple jurisdictions. He can afford to pay those bonds. So he has no empathy or sympathy for poor people like that. They should have made it more specific. Let it focus on violent offenders and make it specific target to those crimes. If they're committed, then the cashless bond, no cash bond, applies to them. But make it blanket like he has done, I got a problem with that, because it's going to fill the prisons, fill the jails with poor people. They already cannot afford to get out, so they damn sure can afford a lawyer. So it's just a war on poverty.
The flip side to that, however, is when you say he doesn't have any empathy. Yeah, it sounds like he doesn't have any empathy for people charged with committing crimes. And I'll agree that it needs to be nuanced and needs to be case specific. But right now, the paradigm, the reality in Washington, D.C. is crime is out of control. And instead of addressing it aggressively, the Democrats that actually run that city, right, are just posturing and engaged in performative equity, reform, justice nonsense, right? And it's letting law abiding almost exclusively. 90% of the people murdered in the District of Columbia, African American. The murder rate is out of control in that city.
Of the District of Columbia is African American.
Well, no, it's not 90%, but it's
DC is Black DC. Let's
oh
be
no, I
honest
agree,
here.
but it's not
DC
90%.
DC is known as Black DC. And
get
what
it.
percentage of the District of Columbia are people in poverty based on race in the District of Columbia? Then it's going to be disproportionately African American people. Why is Donald
Black
Trump
people are getting
not
murdered,
saying-
and
But
something
here's my
needs to be
question.
done to protect those people.
But Charles,
That's
why
it. And
is
that's the
he not?
conversation that you don't want to have, and so many
Charles,
people on the
but
left
why
don't want
is
to
he
have,
not
is that the
sending-
left isn't doing anything to protect law-abiding citizens
But crime
who
is
just
going
want
down
to
in
live their
DC.
damn lives. You're having pharmaceutical
Statistically,
deserts,
crime is
retail
going down.
deserts, grocery deserts, all created by shoplifting and theft that has
But
gone
Charles,
crazy,
Even
and no
when
one does a
crime is
damn
going
thing.
down in the District of Columbia, you do this. Why did not Donald Trump send the National Guard to Republican-led states where crime is at an all-time high? Why is he not sending the National
Well,
Guard and
talking
federal
about
authorities
doing it right here in
into
Houston.
Memphis, Tennessee? Why they not in Memphis, Tennessee? Look
Oh,
at
I
Memphis,
agree.
Tennessee's crime rate. No, because
So
they
you
got
would welcome it in
they got
Memphis?
a Republican governor
Okay,
that
so would you
supports
welcome
Donald Trump.
Cornell? Would you welcome it in Memphis?
I would welcome increased policing in Memphis. I would
Oh, so
welcome.
that was
but
just
I
you
would say
talking out
this,
your
but I would
hind
say
end.
this,
So
they
you
must
don't
work
want him to do
together.
it in Memphis
I
either?
do not. I do not want them
Exactly.
coming in
Exactly.
as
So what was your
adversaries
point?
to local law enforcement. I don't want federal government coming in as adversaries to local law enforcement. If they're not going to work together, then don't come in. If they're
But
going to
the
work
problem is
together,
the
then yes.
local law enforcement in DC is not working. They're not doing their job. They're standing by with horse blinders on and ignoring crime. And that's the problem. And it's happening in so many urban
crime
centers,
is going down in
Democrat-controlled urban centers, irrespective of who runs the state. And
But
who
he's
suffers the
biased
most?
toward
Black Americans
Democratic-led
that
cities.
don't break the law. And it
Why
seems
do-
like that the Democrat politicians don't give a damn about Black Americans that pay taxes, about Black Americans that
Republican
have good jobs,
politicians don't
about
give a
Black
damn
Americans that
about
want to go
Black
to
people
school
that
and be
pay
safe.
taxes.
And those are the Black Americans
Don't
I
pretend that
care
only
about, not
Democrats
the criminals
don't care
and the
about Black people.
awful people. And it's
No
the same with white
politician
people. The
from
white
either
people I
party
care about
cares
are the
about
good,
poor Black people.
hardworking white Americans, not the criminals. I don't
I disagree,
understand
Charles.
why so many
He's
Democrat
targeting
politicians
Black-led
and you
cities.
don't care about Black victims.
He's targeting Black Democratic-led cities.
Why is he not targeting those Republican-dominated states?
He's
with
talking
high
about
crime
coming to
rates?
Houston. What are you talking about?
That's
This is
not
a
done that.
Republican state.
Why he ain't sending them to Houston? And Houston is a Republican.
He's
Houston,
talking about it.
And Texas is a dominant Republican state, but
Yeah,
he's
but
targeting black-led Democratic cities.
But again,
Let's be honest.
you're being deceptive because
No, I'm
yes,
not.
well, we
He's
have a
targeting
Republican
black-led
governor.
Democratic cities.
We do in Houston, except for our white mayor. I think the city council is all exclusively African American. I think that all of our public servant leadership are people of color. It is an absolutely completely Democrat controlled
They're not
city.
coming to Houston. They're
Okay,
not gonna come
so
to Houston.
you think it's just racism, huh?
I believe that Trump is targeting African American led cities that are Democratic led cities for a reason. And the reason why is because he wants to paint the face of crime and the face of the problem involving the criminal justice system as a black male face in this country.
Wait.
Because that feeds his base, that
Wait.
feeds the right-wing element that believe those racist tropes about
Well,
black
what's the
people.
racist tropes?
This
I'd love to
same
hear
man,
this.
let me tell you something. This same
Well, what's the
man,
racist tropes? Let's
the
talk about
racist
violent
trope-
crime and the racist
trope is
tropes.
that the
Please let me
image
know.
of crime in America is a black male face. But he doesn't want to paint that the image of poverty in America, in this country, in the inner cities is overwhelmingly black and brown people. But he doesn't want to paint the fact
Oh,
that
now
look,
you're moving
man,
the ball,
the school
right?
system is a failed system in predominantly black and brown led cities. But why don't we focus on this? He's attempting to totally rewrite the Constitution. On the same day he wrote this cashless bail executive order, he also made it a crime to burn the American flag. When the United States Supreme Court already ruled just a couple of years ago that burning the flag is protected according to the Constitution in free speech. It's a form of free speech. He knows that, but now he's made it a federal crime to burn the flag. He's going against the U.S. Supreme Court ruling because he don't give a damn about no court in America.
Well, some clarity. Initially, he is ordering his Justice Department to take efforts to be able to enforce prohibitions on flag burning. He doesn't have the right to create a crime with his pen. Really, I mean, although they've expanded regulatory enforcement, that is in the province of our legislature, right? The Senate and the House of Representatives. They long ago enacted laws against burning the flag that were repeatedly shot down by the Supreme Court and is seen as protected under the First Amendment. I'm not going to defend that idiocy. That's absolute idiocy, right? It's odd coming from you, right? Because years ago I heard you express how you don't think people should be able to burn the Quran, right? Now I think you should be able to burn the American flag. I think you should be able to burn the Bible. I think you should be able to burn the Quran. I think you should be able to build.
Disagree.
Of course you do, because you're an absolute hypocrite. That's what makes this show great, is your hypocrisy.
You should not be allowed to burn the Holy Quran.
Why not?
In fact, I don't think you should be allowed to burn.
Why should you be allowed to burn the Holy American flag?
Because it's ironic to Christians who support Donald Trump. He made it illegal to burn the flag, but he makes it all right legal to burn the Holy Bible. So why would he put more emphasis and concern on allowing people to burn the Bible if they want to burn it, but you can't burn the United States flag? Because Trump don't give a damn about that Christian base that supports him. They got to ask themselves the question. You go to jail for burning the flag, but you applaud if you decide to burn the Bible. I'm against burning the Bible and the Holy Quran. I'm against burning anything.
I don't think any reasonable person would applaud anyone burning someone else's holy book or their own holy book or the American flag.
But that takes place in America.
I think reasonable people would be like, man, that's just stupid. Why are you doing that? But what we're talking about is the ability to do it as an act of speech, where you would actually support making it illegal, Sharia compliant, to burn the Holy Quran, in your opinion, right? But you want it to be legal to burn the flag. And that's the height of hypocrisy, right?
No, it's not.
It's the absolute height. No, it is.
No,
Because
it's
here
not.
we have a First Amendment,
I can tell you
where
why.
people can express themselves. And while you might think it's a holy book, there's a great number of people who have a legitimate argument that it's a book that promotes hatred, violence, pedophilia, violence against infidels, violence, sectarian violence, and all these horrible things that are expressly laid out, verse by verse, word by word. And so while you think it's a great book, I think it's a horrible book.
Do you
And we
support burning the
disagree on it.
Confederate flag?
I support burning anything. If you're doing it as
wait a
speech,
minute.
not like a house or anything, but a performative
I
burning of a
believe-
flag or a book, I think it's
believe-
protected on the First Amendment. I think it's
I
gross to
believe
burn the
burning the
American
Confederate flag should be
Who
legal.
cares about burning
And
a
burning the American flag should be legal because both Confederate flag and
Right, I
American
think they should
flag
both be
were the
legal.
flags of slavery in America. Both flags flew at auctions.
See how
and
you're changing the
slave sales.
subject?
Both
See how you don't
flags
want to
flew on
own your
slave
positions
ships
on the
that
Quran
brought in
being somehow
slaves to America.
special and everything else
So
not being
the
special?
the Bible should be kept in check for those who wish to commit crimes in its name. But the flag of slavery is both American flag and Confederate flag. That's why I support burning
I
both
don't
of
even
them.
know what you're talking
as a
about. This. What
form
do
of
you mean the Bible should be kept in check? What do you mean by that?
Those who want to commit crimes in the name of the Bible and those who want to commit crimes in the name of the Holy Quran, they should be kept in check. But both books should be protected and not be allowed to be destroyed.
There's not a lot of people committing crimes in the name of the Bible. There are
That's
an
not true.
unbelievable number of people committing violent crimes.
Slavery
all
was
across
established
the
in the
world.
name of the Bible.
I'm sorry?
Slavery in America was established in the name of the Bible.
Yeah, but I'm talking about 2025.
But wait a minute.
And actually, slavery wasn't established on the Bible.
But wait a
Slavery
minute.
was an awful institution that was created by mankind at the dawn of mankind and
where their
lasted
religious
all throughout
scholars said
mankind
black people
until
were
the
cursed
British
from the
government decided
Happitic
to end it.
curse.
And where does slavery
No,
continue
Charles.
today? Well, it continues in Africa and South
And in
Asia.
America.
Right?
Slavery
No, it
continues in
doesn't in America. That's
Read
just
the
you
13th
lying. But
Amendment.
it's really
When
you
you're
changing the
convicted of a
subject
crime
away
in
from
America, you're
burning
allowed
the
to
flag
become a legal
okay,
slave.
burning my religious
Slavery
text
still
not.
exists right here in America under the 13th Amendment. You can be a legal slave that's convicted for a felony and been in prison for a crime. You lose your rights and you can become a modern day free slave in America. So it still exists right here too.
Well, I mean, the solution to that is stop committing crimes so you don't end up in prison. But no, that's not real slavery. That's
Solution is
imprisonment.
stop the war on poverty in the name of the war on crime and stop making prisons private for profit. That's how you stop that. Because certain states, including Texas, has contracts with private prisons that say they will keep the bed capacity filled at 89%. And if they go under the 89%, then they pay a penalty to the private prison institution. So they have to keep bodies rolling into these private prisons because there's a contractual obligation to keep so many beds filled for profit. So don't tell me slavery.
I mean, obviously, you've had scandals like Pennsylvania where they were sending kids to private jails for profit, and you've had issues. But you know that